just brings home that mental health matters. And I personally have worked with him. I've referred him to many people. And my last thought is that, and what I've told friends, I've told family, if you break your arm, you never think, I'll fix this, I'll put a balm. You go to the doctor.
Yep.
But when you're broken emotionally or struggling psychologically, we tend to, stigma or...
You actually don't even know who to turn to.
Yeah.
You try and self-mend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And usually you make quite a mess of it.
And families suffer,
Yeah.
People suffer. And there are specialists there who, you have a sitting and you're told ABCD, you're like, huh? Yani, it's nothing that big. Or if it is something big, you're given the tools to deal with it. So mental health matters. It's good that government in recent times is taking it more seriously, but the thing with government is they talk.
They're not taking it seriously at all.
They're talking?
At all.
Or they talked for a second.
Yes,
it's just talk.
It's talk.
Fleeting.
There's talk about some 200 acres where they now want to move Mathare Hospital to and all that. Good. But it's not the moving of the hospital that is going to help us deal with our mental health issues.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
It's making it available.
Yes. It's
Ensuring-
understanding. Yes. A whole commission was set up, a task force. They had recommendations. Have we heard of any steps being taken? Mental health is not something you deal with in a hospital. It's something you tackle at the level of the family, at the level of the community before it gets there. It's the same issue with our health.
Exactly.
We are talking about health, and yet the basics of how it is to work and strengthen what you call the preventative approach to healthcare. It's talk. We had the healthcare specialists here, and we talked about it the other day. And he more or less said, actually, yes, we haven't quite done. It's something that can be done. Research has proved conclusively, and the ministries know. It's not the Ministry of Health, but no, lip service. And when they move, it's only, I think, 2 or 3 years ago that the Ministry of Health even set up a Department of Community Health. Department. Those who are trained in medicine have a unit for community health. A unit. And it's the one unit that many people who study medicine don't bother attending. They don't think it is important.
Yet we saw the countries that take preventative health, community health, public health seriously
yes.
are the ones who are able to respond to COVID.
Of course they were.
Because wellness is about the community.
Yep.
It is. So,
Now, as the political formations are asserting themselves, who is talking about the issues that matter? They're talking about power positioning. Kenyans need to
I think
wake up.
You've understood it, Wanjiro. Eric brought up this issue, and Ndu, when she was here, also really pushed this agenda. Said, look, do you hear any of these leaders actually championing something that matters to us, or matters, or is of great concern to the common man? Eric, can we talk about COVID before we derail this entire conversation?
It's part of it. Do you? Are
No.
you hearing people
Look
talking
at the
about
headlines.
what really matters?
They share power. They scrap for power.
It's all just about that, left, right, and center. And what's happening is COVID is still spreading in the country. We still have numbers in the country on what's numbers being reported on a daily basis. Question is, we are only about 8 days to the end of the month. When are those vaccines arriving? Remember, we're expecting about 10 million or so vaccines to come. Are they still on the way? When are they arriving? Is there information that's being spread out there so that people know that this is what's happening? We need to protect ourselves. We need to go for vaccination. Stories, for example, in the BBC about places in the world like Mexico, like in India, where people are seeking vaccination and they're not getting. Others are basically just running away from vaccination because of misinformation. There's still a lot of misinformation on the vaccine in this country. And we saw the government launch a campaign for about 2 days towards the end of the financial year so they can consume that money on.
Yes.
We laugh, but it's really tragic.
Yeah.
But we see it every year. Around the time when we're about to come to the end of the financial year, man, the activities within government are
ramped up.
astounding.
Yep.
Yes.
They're ramped up. Now this is what's going to happen. Now we're talking. So COVID in numbers it's still out there. We've seen what's happened in the UK, in France. We talked about that yesterday. It's still ravaging villages in India. It's even moved to places like, in Pakistan. I was watching news yesterday. They're reporting thousands of deaths in a day in countries such as Pakistan, Bangladesh, and it's moving so badly.
Talking about that, in the UK, there are also reports that close to 60% of the people who are actually in the hospital with the COVID-related issues are people who've received both doses
of vaccine.
And they're hospitalized.
Yes, but that isn't strange. You see, the understanding is, in most people, is that the vaccine is a cure. It's not.
It prevents critical
Yes,
illness.
it's a preventative measure. But if it is true that 60% of those who are in hospital for COVID-related issues have both vaccines, have received the dosage, you need to pause. And it's not the vaccine that is my issue. It is COVID. You don't take it lightly.
And it's here with us
It's here to
for
stay.
a while.
This COVID doesn't seem like it's going to go anywhere
My
soon.
goodness, yeah.
We are going to be living with it the way we live with malaria.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So let's take a break. We'll be looking at the weather shortly, see what's happening around the world in terms of weather. Weather is another issue. Adverse weather all over the world, extremities. So in China, for example, this place flooded.
Those images were harrowing.
I
I thought Germany was like, I guess they didn't catch the action in Germany, but in China, the height of those floods, those waves in the middle of the streets.
Yep.
By the way, in Germany, the remark that was made was, in living memory.
They haven't seen this.
Living memory,
In
they have
living
not
memory.
seen. China will report the same thing.
Yep.
In living memory, they have not seen.
And then across in the States, the wildfires.
Oh, yes.
That is just, and they talked
Extreme
about
heat.
this concentrated build-up of heat. You're like, man, they make movies about this stuff,
Yep.
and it's here. They
It's
they
happening.
destroyed
It's-
an entire state worth of forest cover. So I'm thinking, you destroy the forest cover, it means global warming, So it's compounding itself.
Yep.
Yes, it is. But you know what is strange also? The issues of these wildfires before climate change and everything related to it became a serious matter of discussion. It was not unusual for it to happen. In fact, it was considered something positively ecological, because whenever nature did its thing, what would happen is it gave an opportunity for new
For
growth.
replay.
Yes, exactly, for replenishing.
Right.
It did. But these are destructive.
And
This
what
is
they're saying
serious.
is that the frequency
Yes.
is the problem, because it would happen once every so many years.
It was
but
known,
now you're
yes.
having almost annual or every 2 years, so the replenishment is not happening.
And it's widespread. Places
Widespread.
like the coldest parts of the world, Siberia, has wildfires.
I mean,
In Siberia, there are wildfires.
But also remember, if you want to connect it, for the longest time we've been told, because of climate change, Antarctica, all the cold spots in the world, the ice has been thawing,
Yep.
it has been melting. What that automatically means, water levels rise.
Rising.
It's not complicated. So when they rise, water moves. So just extrapolate and think about it.
And it continues with global warming
It
because the permafrost has been absorbing carbon. Now, when it starts melting,
It's
it
just thawing.
releases
It releases a carbon.
carbon
right.
back into the ozone. Well, that's the weather for you this morning. Let's take a break.
Try
We'll be
not to
back
be
shortly.
too depressed. Stay in bed and refuse to get.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
As the Kenyans are roared into the home straight here. 4 Kenyan queens have lit up this balmy Bahamian night.
It's where the rivalry is unmatched, where the soul meets the track, where the great are distinguished from the good. An arena where the records are broken.
A new world record. It's not just been beaten, it's been obliterated.
A stage where the legends are born. For Team Kenya, the Olympics is more than just a sport. It is our tradition, It's an event that has put Kenya on the roadmap. The Standard Group lets you watch every minute and every action live in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, because we live for Team Kenya. We live for the game. At Standard Group, sports lives here.
Spice FM. Nyeri. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
So it's coming up to
Nairobi.
20 minutes after 6, and people are already online and saying hello to us. Good morning, wherever you are. David Kerry was Subukia. Of course, Subukia is tuned in. Mwangi Shimani is in Zambia. Bedi Asli is in Macha. So, today you're Bedi Macha. Tomorrow you're Bedi Asli. All right, whatever. You're in Macha. Very good morning to you. Rita Chieng, good morning, says following. From Homa Bay is John Jera. And from Subukia is David Kerry wa Subukia. Says, hapa, show inashika. Pretty Purity says, kahawa ndani, tuko pamoja. Kelly Kipchumba is tuned in Soy. Live in Zambia is Timothy Siamachunka. And Charity Maina is in Milimani, Nakuru. Very good morning to you, everybody. Welcome to today's show. Well, I haven't told you what we'll be discussing. So, now that we started off on the conversation on mental health, we'll have a mental health conversation at 7 o'clock. We'll be joined by a journalist and founder of Wellness Tribe. His name is Danish Odongo. And we'll be talking about that. What is the impact of corruption on mental health, especially on the youth? They've done a study and he'll be coming to tell us about that. And then also we will have a conversation about the next general election, whether we are going to see more women participating in the election in terms of presenting themselves as candidates in political parties, as independent candidates. Are we going to see that? A commissioner with the Gender and Equality Commission will be joining us this morning as well on that conversation at 8 o'clock. So you don't want to miss that. CT, today's proverb.
It is not the cook's fault when the cassava turns to be hard and tasteless.
I can see this week it's food, proverbs to do with food. Eh?
Well, a little continuity won't harm.
Won't harm.
It doesn't harm.
Yes, I mean,
Do you have any issue with this one today?
No, he's
This one
learnt.
you relate.
Lessons are learnt. Very impressed.
It is not the cook's fault when the cassava turns out to be.
Hard and tasteless.
yes.
No arguments here.
Yeah.
No arguments. A bit of transference of responsibility, but no arguments at all.
Yes, this is a Ghanaian proverb
Yeah.
from the Ewe people.
From who?
Ewe, E-W-E. It's a Ghanaian community, otherwise known as tribe.
They're called Ewe.
Ewe. Ewe, E-W-E. Ewe.
Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu
Yes, that one.
nisaidie. Let us look at the headlines then. What's in the papers today? Huduma Namba may die in 8 days. When you hear that headline, you're like, huh? What do you mean?
What do you mean? I am like,
Die in 8 days? So the story basically is about, you remember there's a time when there's this tussle between the National Assembly and the Senate. Some laws passed by the National Assembly without concurrence with the Senate. And the court had said, look, you guys have to go and harmonize these laws and make sure that there is concurrence between the two houses. So it's in page 8 of the Standard today. In 8 days' time, your Huduma number could be declared useless because Parliament has failed to rescue the law that created Huduma number, as well as 22 other controversial statutes which the courts had directed be regularized in 9 months. Last year, the court declared laws illegal because the National Assembly passed them without consensus from the Senate, but gave Parliament grace period to regularize them, failure to which the court orders could kick in. Now, we are coming to the end of that period, and it's clear that they have not done what they are supposed to have done. Yesterday in court, the houses continued to read from different scripts. Their lawyers, National Assembly lawyer Paul Muite, was asking the Court of Appeal judges Asike Mahandia, Mombingoge and Agnes Murgo to extend the period, saying that failure to do so will create a crisis in 8 days. But the Senate's lawyer, Senator James Orengo, opposed the application, arguing that National Assembly can only go back to court that issued the orders and plead its case on why the orders were impossible to implement. The Senate is accusing the National Assembly of forum shopping. It's arguing that another Court of Appeal judge bench had dismissed.
Where have they been since last year when they needed to regularize this?
Well, they've been busy, dealing with other laws.
Like BBIs and...
Pushing the debt ceiling.
Yeah.
Right.
Looking at the budget.
Right.
There are other, there was a program of the National Assembly.
That was what?
This is
You
a
don't
program.
sound convinced
The National Assembly had its program
of things to do.
of things that it was doing. So now these ones.
We didn't include rescuing the Huduma number.
So you already have your number on the card.
Says who?
No,
The thing
I
was
mean,
illegal. I have no such thing.
You don't have a Huduma number.
I'm an objector.
He.
I didn't pick a Huduma number. You know why? They have not enacted the data privacy. So you pick the Huduma number without completing the framework. Then, the other objection, of course, was public
I
participation.
opened up a Pandora's box, haven't I? Okay, carry on, 10.
Huduma was imposed upon the people of Kenya with threats and intimidation, public participation, give people time. And the courts declared it illegal. So,
The courts declared it
waiting.
illegal because of this concurrence with the Senate.
well,
Now, if they had concurred with the Senate, would you go and register?
yes, for sure.
Now we have data privacy. We even have a data commissioner in office. Everything is set. So go get your Huduma number.
Once the law is regularized, I will. Why should I operate under an illegal system?
Support your government, Wanjiro,
To do what? To be...
to roll out programs.
You know, I love, not love, I respect Matiang'i and what he does and what he stands for.
What does he stand for exactly?
He's getting things done. But I do not like his autocratic style. And the way Huduma number was implemented, first of all, there was controversy around the money. There were questions around that, accountability questions. And then you force and whip people as though people, apart from sovereignty, as though we have no brains. Treat people with dignity.
Njiro,
So-
it's this same gentleman
There
and
was
those same
dignity.
tactics that actually sorted out the examination issue in the Ministry of Education. Same guy. Same tactic, same.
Which is why...
Not any difference.
Which is why I said I respect what he seeks to achieve. But look at education. He's the same gentleman who did not listen to the experts when he was told, slow down the rollout, listen to the data. Why? Because he's so bullish, it has to be my way or the highway. People need to listen. Performance is not about bullying. Performance is about having a vision
But
and
Wanjiro,
moving people
yes.
with you. You
Yes,
don't own development by yourself.
Yes, Wanjiro, but also performance is not about perennial debates which never end. Okay? The people just want to discuss and discuss and discuss. Right now, it's a discussion issue that has put the Huduma number in peril. They did
Not at all. Let me give you a
didn't
perfect example. Let me give you a perfect example. NAC administration. Kibaki promised, NAC administration promised free primary education. It was a campaign promise.
Yes.
They had no idea how they were going to. In fact, they stole the idea from ODM because it was an ODM. Doesn't matter. It's politics.
There was no ODM at that point, Wanjiro.
Who was it? The equivalent.
Kanu.
It wasn't Kanu. They stole it from Kina. Raila was
Which are
on
the
which
NDP.
They were
relevant.
together, so they didn't steal.
Anyway, the idea
NAC had
that money,
LDP
it was LDP.
and
So the LDP are the ones who had fronted. Let me get my point across,
Yes,
gentlemen.
please, just get your point across. Let's not quibble about LDP. and
LDP had promised free primary education, and then the DP, NAC, picked it as the agenda, so campaigned on it. Got into office. What did they do? They pushed the idea to Kipra and told Kipra, this is a campaign promise. Can you tell us how it's done? So Kipra did the policy work and the expert work of telling them this is how you roll out. The problem with the Jubilee administration is they move from brainwave to contracting to implementing.
Wanjiro.
That is why
we
a
all
lot of their
remember
schemes aren't working.
2003. All right? NAC administration, elections happened in December 2002. Kibaki is sworn in at the end of December 2002. Schools opened in January 2013. we start free primary education.
2003.
2003. We
Yes.
rolled out education immediately. That whole issue of the gap that you're trying to create, that Kipra did some work before rollout, that was happening after the fact.
No, it was happening concurrently.
That's after the fact.
And
The
by
fact
the way-
is you're in
But
school,
they listened.
education has started.
But they listened, and Kipra came
This
in and
one's-
said, well, this is how you implement, and this is how you mitigate.
You could argue the same way with this.
So with the
Huduma number,
education
as it was
system-
happening with rollout of registration of Huduma number, what was happening was laws on data protection were taking place.
Aye.
They were going, yes.
It hadn't even... The law
The
on
law
data
that
protection
was
had
enacted-
been ongoing,
Yes.
and the discussion had stalled. The
It was
point
ongoing.
is,
It was being taken to Parliament. It was being discussed. As they were rolling out, let's register for Huduma number. When we finish registration, this will also be in place.
the point you're missing is this. When free primary education was rolling out, it was new, it was novel. Yes, there was a lot of
It
chaos.
wasn't
They are,
new,
they
it
are, they are
wasn't
thinking
novel,
about
but
it.
go
Allow me
on.
to finish my point. With Huduma number,
You know, I'm just
there
doing-
were
I'm just doing a
procurement.
Wanjiru new, by the way.
There were procurement issues.
Yes.
The deadline was short, and completely unreasonable data protection was not in place. There were even court actions taken. So the point I am making is this: when I was comparing with FPE. And when I was comparing with the rollout of the comprehensive, the competency-based
Yes.
education program,
Yes.
the Achilles heel of the very good CS, Matiang'i, is he doesn't listen. He doesn't consult adequately. You cannot run a country of 58 million people as though you're the be-all. You need to
I'll
listen.
grant you that
need
argument.
to be efficient. You
I'll
need
grant
to
you that
push,
argument,
but you need
but-
to listen
but I
and
will-
move with stakeholders.
I'll contest on the issue of FPE having gone through all those things. There was participation, or there was, some work that had been done. January, schools opened. George Saitoti has just been appointed Minister for Education, and he's told, roll it out.
And I'll tell you,
And we remember the images that we were seeing. For example, Olympic Primary School,
with
full.
yeah.
And teachers' union saying, now you've told us to roll out free primary education. Children are coming to school. You don't even have desks.
You're missing
You don't
the
even
point.
have teachers.
I agree
That is
with
what
you.
was happening first week of schools
I
opening.
agree with you. So
Kipra
what did
was-
they do? What did they do? They went to Kipra. Now the point I'm making here is that the difference with Kibaki, and the reason he was able to implement, or that administration was able to implement many of its programs, is it listened to the experts. And it doesn't mean they didn't get it wrong. They did many times, but they listened to the experts. The problem I have with this administration, Matiang'i is one of the better performers, but they have a penchant. They don't listen to experts.
You think
They
John,
don't
you,
move
you
with.
think John Michuki was any different?
They don't move with
These
the
people who
stakeholders.
perform look and they determine what needs to be done, and they move and they do it. The consultation can come later, and I think part of the reason is they live in this country. They're Kenyans. They understand.
They know us.
They know us, and they know how we go about our
I
things.
don't agree with you. Not about John
Oh.
Mishuki either. And I'll tell you what the weakness. John Mishuki was a great administrator. He led from the front. How sustainable were the good initiatives he put in place? They weren't. They were all reversed. Why? Because he was running it on his own energy. If you're going to solve a problem
Today,
as a minister,
matatus
you
still
need
have a yellow line
They do.
that
You need
indicates the
to
route.
move-
And they still wear uniform.
Today, uniforms are still worn in the matatus.
You're missing the point.
Today, seat belts are a requirement.
Whether
Saying
used
that
or
they
not.
were reversed,
No.
Wajiro, I
the
think
mistake you're
it's
making
the wrong
is,
word that you're using.
The mistake you're making is this. I am making the case for moving with stakeholders for sustainable solutions. I am not questioning that
Yeah, but
Mishuki was a great
But
administrator.
you're revising history with that. You're giving us past experience and telling us that this was done better than this. And
I think so.
That's why I'm arguing and saying, not necessarily.
The reason I say so is because Kipra was well funded by the NAC administration. They took their advice. They consulted them on policy decisions. Under this administration, Kipra is underfunded.
To
You know why
date.
that free education
It's
was actually
underfunded.
possible?
Why? Because they're not
date.
listening to
Wanjiru.
expert
To
advice.
date, schools are still crowded because of what happened in
Yes.
2003.
They are still
To
crowded.
date. If they were following the advice by Kipra, they would have increased the number of schools. How many new schools have been built
By the
in
government.
this country by the government of the Republic of Kenya?
Since
Let's take a
2002.
break. 27 minutes to 7.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*1# to read the standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line, and stay up to date for a reliable source with over 100 years of experience with no additional data charges.
Spice FM, Malindi.
All right, so what's happening on the roads? Mombasa Road, coming towards town. It's okay, but Mlolongo is busy, as you'd expect, near the SGR. And then you get to City Cabanas, and it starts getting busy. General Motors is also busy. As you head to Nyayo Stadium roundabout, it's busy. Aerodrome between Bunyala and Haile Selassie Avenue is busy. Langata Road has not yet started being busy. You know the usual hotspot, and that is Mbagathi Way. So far, it's okay. Ngong Road is lovely. Thika Road, the usual spot. Muthaiga is busy. Jogoo Road, the usual spots. Makadara. What makes Makadara so busy on Jogoo Road? What is it? There's no junction here. What is it? It's not the road that comes from Hamza. What's the problem? Anyway, as you approach City Stadium roundabout as well, it's busy. And then you go to Landis Road, is also busy. But if there's any specific issue that you think we ought to talk about, please let us know. SpiceFM KE on Twitter or 40127. Good morning.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
All right, so let's continue looking at the headlines. What uplifting story are you looking at, Wanjiru?
I wanted to settle the issue we were discussing before when I said I do not have my Huduma number because it was imposed upon Kenyans without a policy framework, which is how the Jubilee administration works, unlike the Kibaki administration that moved with policy. And to settle the argument, I would like CT to show us his Huduma number, because he's the one who instigated this entire attack on me and my person.
No, CT was not around when the Huduma number was being rolled out, but I went and registered, and my Huduma number is at the Westlands DO's office. You know, there's road construction.
And there's also representation. If Eric registered and he has a Huduma number, I'm covered.
Yes.
So, the Kenyans who don't have Huduma number are watching this case with a lot of interest.
Look,
Put it right.
Wanjiru,
Leave it
I
there.
don't have an Huduma number.
Or a conscientious objection to it.
Not particularly. Not particularly. It's just that I couldn't make the time. Not find, make the time to... Every time I made an attempt, I saw the queues, I was deterred.
And
It's not that I didn't want to register. I looked at the time spent, I was going to spend, I suspended it.
from a stakeholder, from a public participation point of view, government should not harass Kenyans into those kind of impossible deadlines.
Dr.
How was that?
Matiang's
How was that?
style...
Policy rollout should be preceded by civic education,
Right.
sensitization, and should give adequate time.
You
So
are aware that the government is not civil society.
What is adequate time?
It's governed under the Constitution of Kenya.
What would you-
and
what-
this is the interpretation BBI gave us about a proper public participation
BBI?
process. Yeah, the court gave us.
The court
Gave us.
What,
the
what is
BBI
adequate?
ruling.
What is adequate time?
This has been argued. There are examples in countries where when you're doing a policy rollout, you'll do sensitization maybe up to 2 months. It depends on the process. But adequate time means you shouldn't have to have that kind of the pressure that we had.
There should be no deadline.
No, it doesn't mean that. It's not one extreme or the other. It means people are working, they have other things to do.
Yeah.
The public participation process should not be punitive, and impinge upon my ability to continue doing what I'm doing. So I have a civic responsibility to engage in government processes. By the same token, government processes should not be, coercive.
If we agree with you, can we move on to another topic?
Yeah.
Okay, then we agree with you. Eric.
No, Wanjiro.
Another topic. Yeah. Over to you.
I want to object with the way CT has closed that one, but back to the case we were looking at yesterday. The union has now moved to court to block the University of Nairobi's reform plan. The union further has moved to court. They talk about that. Union says its members are now facing imminent job losses despite having binding contracts. The union further claims that some of the ongoing students have been left hanging after courses they were undertaking were merged with others or their department's roles taken away. And my interest in this is yes, the process of transition. Like we said with competency-based education implementation, experts were saying rollout process should take adequate time so that it's not coercive. But I also suspect there is a angle missing here, which is the IMF-funded fiscal consolidation program and the pace, because government was given a year to reform institutions. The Treasury issued a circular, and my, what's niggling me is that the background that's missing to this, beyond what is a power play, a political power play.
Or could it just be coincidental as well? Because remember, this is the only public university that we're seeing doing this. We haven't seen the others move with such kind of speed. Maybe it's coincidental. We have a new administration in office in University of Nairobi. They are in the city. They have very many programs that they've been running. They have huge capital outflows. And so they needed to do something. The new administration maybe just came in, and then now coupled with that, what the government is tight-fisted, IMF comes in. Maybe it's a happy combination of very fast.
This new administration didn't come from outer space. Huh? These are people who've worked in the university system. They understand it. Now, there's this debate of, should we say public participation? Remember, it arose yesterday.
Yes.
But then let me ask the question. You have a Senate, you have a council. They have a mandate and they have duties that they must perform.
Yes.
At what point do their duties begin and end, and at what point in such occurrences do you bring in what we're referring to as public participation?
Maybe the word to use, CT, would be stakeholder engagement.
Public participation, stakeholder engagement.
That's just because you say public now, you say everybody, but let's call it stakeholder engagement.
Yes.
Your student population.
Yes.
Currently, you have a program, and you're saying that we are going now to merge this into this. You have students in specific colleges, and you've said we have scrapped those colleges. You have the staff, the teaching staff, the other staff. Have they been adequately engaged so that they can understand this?
Even before we discuss this,
yeah.
the issues that the university, let's talk about University of Nairobi, that they currently have. My friend, there are a myriad. And the good VC, the good professor, Kiama, found these problems. It's not as though he invented them, he didn't bring them, he found them. As we speak right now, students who study are not really sure when it is that they some of them may continue with their studying, because they haven't been called. Some of the results of the exams they did have not been issued. The university has a problem, right? Not very long ago, we had a problem in Maseno University where the entire administration block got burnt down. You know what that meant? Results, documentation, everything that had to do with the running of the school got burnt. So the process of getting this thing back, of course, the people went to court, there were issues, they thought it was arson. What am I saying? Public universities have an issue. And if public universities have an issue, please don't hesitate to point at the government. Because usually the problem emanates from there. Why do I say it emanates from there? If you have a situation where you know how much a university requires in order to function properly, and you do not give them that wherewithal, what do you think is going to happen cumulatively?
Right. And
it will catch up with you.
It will catch up. And this is why you're hearing those billions. Now, they have their own responsibility of ensuring that certain things are done. Because statutory deductions, they are behind to a point where you can't even believe. Okay? It's a vicious cycle.
Of mismanagement
Yes,
and
and
underfunding.
what the good professor is trying to do, one can even understand. But as you correctly put it, the truth is this. He did jump the gun. This is too big a change for you to simply spring it and say this is what we want.
Can just
to
issue
do.
a circular.
No. Not this sort of thing. The circular should have been, these are the things we're planning to do. And we would
want
like
to engage within the next 3 months. We'll be
to-
engaging
yes.
with you to
that
get your
ought
buy-in.
to have been the approach. But the issue at the University of Nairobi did not start with Professor Kiama.
I completely agree with you, and in fact, in your conclusion. And the only thing I'd like to add that, apart from he's jumped the gun, he should have had, a better rolled out process, is that for sustainable reforms, for sustainable development, for sustainable projects, you need the stakeholders. You need the ownership. Otherwise, you get the situation where your stakeholders will ambush your good plans.
Or sabotage it.
And we, the media, are not helping, because when we say it's a fight between
Exactly.
Professor Magoha and Professor Kiama,
Kiama.
you see, you have moved away from
the
the germane
issues.
issues. Now you've made it a duel. You've made it a contest. You made it a fight.
Yeah.
I also wish this, the writers that are following this story would do a little bit more work and link in the budget, the
full
lack of-
context, eh?
the
Yes.
full context as well as the
And detail it.
And because that's important, because we want to know, possibly the university was thinking about how to reform.
Yeah.
And they've found an opportunity with a structural adjustment.
Yeah.
And have ridden on it, but then they're doing it badly. So the context would help.
Or maybe they're doing it well.
But,
If the story actually dug deeper, we may find
they're doing it
that
well.
there was all that consultation.
I'm sure they will. Well, you never know.
You may find that there was. Let's get the details. Anyway, let's take a break. It's 6:45. Time for us to take a very quick, short break, and then we come back and look at more headlines in the papers. Good morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. With you is Eric Latif, CT Muga, and Wajiro Gekonyo.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Losing a loved one is never easy. The lingering memories, the what-ifs, but in all the gloom, we find ways of celebrating them. And here at the Standard Tributes, we aim to give your loved ones that befitting send-off. Visit www.standardmedia.co.ke/tributes today and post your loved one's tribute. In addition, get access to funeral services from our trusted vendors. The Standard Tributes, keeping memories alive.
102.5 Spice FM. Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4
Right,
Spice.
City? What are you looking at?
I haven't let go of this discussion. I just want to mention one thing. Even as we go forward, please look at the composition of a university council, the members who by mandate must be there. Look at the Senate. And then you will understand that even as we discuss the issue of stakeholder engagement, to some degree it was already done, if the council gave a tick. Now, I will leave that argument there. Let us look at the business daily.
Last word.
Yes,
Enough
I just
said.
thought I would mention it. Yes, okay. Business daily, okay. Headline, why Coop Bank CEO earned 260 million shilling bonus?
How much?
Repeat.
260 million shillings bonus.
Cooperative Bank, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This guy earns...
They're making good profits, and
Oh,
the
no.
shareholders are making. What Coop? There's Coop.
The reason is given, that is given for this, is under the bank's performance bonus, it is based on a reward system. Okay?
Yeah.
And it says that, the board says that they reward the CEO because he protected the shareholder returns while navigating the bank.
Through tough economic times occasioned by COVID-19.
Yes, and occasioned by staff reduction, occasioned by all manner of things. one of the things that I notice here, the shareholders are talked about, but you do not read anything about the customers and the clients benefiting immensely from these processes. And the clients,
What do you mean?
The clients of any bank are a key partner in
And the
bank.
depositors.
They are stakeholders.
Yes, they are very key.
Right.
Shareholders, yes, are key, but so are. So I'm saying shareholders benefit from profit, but
Customers benefit from stability of the bank, and therefore their deposits are safe. And if you have savings, you are earning from the savings and you're able to access loans. Those are benefits.
well, you know the reason why this has become an issue is because if you look at, say, you're given the example of a contemporary of one Mr. Muriuki's, and you look at KCB Bank, a bigger bank,
Yep.
then he didn't receive a bonuses.
Yeah, in the past year.
No, he didn't.
I'd have imagined the bank's bottom line would have been affected,
Yes,
but because of COVID.
yes.
Have they told us what the profit was?
Oh, they most certainly do. Of course, they do. And they give you in great detail. They talk about NCBA, they talk about equity. Okay, let me just read it out for you so that you understand. KCB, NBA, Standard Chartered Bank, ABSA reduced or froze bonuses for the CEO in the year ended December, saving a combined 262 million shillings.
Combined.
Equivalent.
Combined.
To the one payout. Right?
I think you're beginning to get me. Equity and IIM were the exceptions, raising their CEO's bonuses by 4.7 million and 4.6 million respectively. Okay?
Or raising, so we don't know the total amount.
Yeah.
Well, it means they made
They
a lot
got
of money.
4 million more than they got last year.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
But also, one of the things that is being said, remember Cooperative Bank was involved in something very, very interesting. They bought Jamii Bora Bank.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, this one raised the workforce to 4,624 from 4,422. But the problem is this. They also laid off very many of these people who are employed. Yes, they raised it, but they cut off. Now, when you cut off employment, what it means is you save money also. It's a combination of all these things that were a direct benefit
Bottom line.
To the bottom line.
to the shareholder. Okay? The other things, social issues that I'm trying to bring, those are mine. They're not really important in this particular article. So he earned that amount of money. I think when somebody does a good job according to the statutes of the institution, they should earn money. But I have one issue. An economy such as ours, with the disparity that we have and the levels of poverty that we have, something is not right. We've had CEOs earning bonuses of up to 400 million. I understand it's an understanding of what the banks have determined and what they should do. But really, are we the sort of economy that actually can sustain and can encourage that sort of pay? I mean, does it paint a good picture?
The issue you have usually with the banks is a moral one.
The issue that
You
I
feel
have
like
with
these are predators.
actually,
They're operating in a market, they are making profit, and their key stakeholder, that is the customer, that's the general public, is not moving in tandem with their kind of
Eric,
growth.
are you saying or asking?
I am.
he's
He's-
heard me say.
I'm painting the picture of what I've heard City say many times.
I am actually taking it
on
further.
the issue of
I am
banks.
also
And you've
saying,
done it very eloquently.
I am saying
I
that
concur.
the common mwananchi worker in a bank, forget the big managers and the directors, they also suffer like the mwananchi. They're actually not as well paid as they. Once upon a time, they were. Once upon a time, working for the bank was one of the best things that could happen to you. Many of those benefits were removed, reduced. So the simple mwananchi who works in the bank, the clerk, and these simple fellows, they don't benefit. Now, the morality comes in. You have a CEO earning that amount of money.
And taking bonuses in
Yes,
to the tune of
this person-
270 million
Yes,
shillings.
this person who deals with the customer on a daily basis and whom you see, or that bank manager who actually deals with the customers in order to make the money that cumulatively ends up giving you this. They are honestly not as well looked after as you may imagine.
It mirrors the cases we've heard of in the States.
It
where
also
the big
mirrors
financial institutions also do
the
this.
levels of misdeed that we keep reading about. A lot of it is kept off the press, but it mirrors the levels of misdeeds that we hear within the banking sector caused by bank employees also. It's been on the increase. It's been on the increase because employees within the banking sector, you'll find they're even more educated than they ever were. So you may have your master's program, you'll be a clerk, or you'll be temporarily engaged on a contract which works on a 2-weekly basis or a monthly basis or whatever it is.
You're a salesperson.
Yes. Now, if this isn't predatory, this is what I'm trying to say. What do you think it is? That's really what I'm trying to say.
Do you think it's also right or okay for one of the largest shareholders of a bank to be in the executive, in the management of the bank?
To me,
Like we see, for example, in the case of the bank that you've mentioned, in the case of Equity, some of the biggest shareholders are maybe the CEO also has substantial stake.
you know,
Interesting.
it could read, and I could argue that it's a conflict of interest, but sometimes it may not be, because the details of how an individual of that sort gets to be such a major shareholder may have to be with just financial prudence that this person he understands.
Yeah.
The shares were offered, he bought them, he had faith in it, so that's how he benefited. But the
Could also
other
be a show of good faith that this person actually is heavily invested in the institution.
Yes.
So as a CEO,
Yes.
they're not just doing
Yes.
working to live.
No,
And the shareholding is a motivation,
Yes.
incentive to ensure
To
the
ensure that-
well-being of the institution.
by the way, there are many people who worked for Microsoft who in the early days couldn't be paid certain monies, but they were given shares.
Yeah.
When Microsoft then became the giant it was, these people became multi-millionaires overnight,
It's a
but they had been
motivation.
employees. So the same could be said, but there's one little twist to it. When you're a CEO, you have insider knowledge. You know when the bank is about to issue shares. You know everything. So it's, should we say, it can be a subject of debate.
It's a mixed bag.
It's a mixed bag, but I cannot outrightly say that it's a direct conflict of interest. No.
Yes, and I imagine that at the board level, there's also guidelines and requirements and disclosures
Yes,
that would
yes.
prevent that.
Yes.
Hopefully,
There should be. I'm sure.
And the
there would be.
regulator as well.
Yeah.
central bank.
Right.
As a key.
So
Right.
I would argue, my issue is not how much he owns. No.
It's how much he's earning in bonus.
Yes, and whether
at the
that
time-
reflects what other people who work within that particular bank or the banking sector
Yeah. Those that helped him.
get it. Do they also benefit as much as he does, or people in his position, do they also benefit?
And like I said, it mirrors really the excessive bonuses and payments that we've seen in, especially in
Wall
America,
Street.
on Wall Street. And
It's a reflection
I'll
of the economy and the size of the economy. So you could even say it makes sense. So I'm asking, our economy, the way it is, the way it's structured,
But
does
there have also been questions raised about the
About those
size of the
ones.
bonuses,
Especially with that
really.
financial crunch
Yeah.
when it happened. There's a story I want us to look at just before we go to the top of the hour. Yesterday we were talking about counties and cess, right? The Supreme Court has told counties, wait a minute, you can't just go collecting cess left, right and center, because you are collecting cess on a service that you're not offering. And this is in a case that was taken to court by Base Titanium. Base Titanium is mining in Kwale County, and then they transport this to the port in Mombasa. So Mombasa County government has put the cess collection point, and it charges 3,000 shillings for every truck that is entering Mombasa County carrying whatever Base Titanium is transporting. They went to court and they said, why are we being charged? We use the highway. The Kenya National Highways Authority is not under the counties. So why are we being charged? And the Supreme Court judges have agreed with them and said, you know what, as counties, you should not be doing. Whereas a county can levy charges, it must do so in exchange for an amenity. Put differently, a county does not have the authority to charge cess, levy or tax where they do not offer anything in return. Interesting one, isn't it?
And it reinforces the point, I think, that we made yesterday, that counties need to rethink how they do their revenue raising. Yeah, not just profiteer.
Yeah. Cess is a very easy one. And actually, in very many cases, you'll find that they are charging that cess on a trunk road, which is under the national government. So who should be collecting this cess? The one who... And you can even argue that you have already paid for usage of the road
Through the roads.
fuel levy.
Through the fuel.
The road maintenance levy in the fuel.
Which part of which comes back to the counties.
Yes.
Yes, so counties need to think this one through. Cess at some point was even being scrapped because it's also it's subject to a lot of corruption just because of the way it's administered.
Yeah, the way it's collected.
Back to the drawing board.
Yes, indeed. Keep it right here. The conversations continue into the next hour. We are going to be having Danish Odongo to come and let's have a conversation about reimagining the fight against corruption, theft of public funds, and the impact that it's having on us as a people. Youth, corruption, and mental health. That's what we'll be discussing with Danish. They did some survey and they've come up with a report, and he'll be sharing with us the details of that report, what they found out, what's the status of mental health, especially among youthful population in this country. We already know the status of mental health among the entire population because Dr. Frank Janka and his team presented that report, and it's public, and we've been told we are not doing well. He says it should be declared a public emergency. The government read that and the government decided, Tonga next year. It is now 7 o'clock. Good morning.
Spice up your life.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. President Uhuru Kenyatta said his government will continue to protect Kenya's borders and maintain security. Speaking after visiting the Special Operations Training Camp among security forces in Boni Forest in Lamu County, President Kenyatta commended the officers for joint training aimed at improving security standards in the country.
Ni kitu muhimu kwa vikosi mbalimbali kuwa zina uwezo kwanza ya kujuana, lakini la pili kushirikiana katika kazi ambazo wanatekeleza. Lakini ningependa pia niseme, tukiwa taifa ambalo lapenda amani, sisi pia sio taifa ambaye itakubali kutishwa ama tukubali hata inchi moja ya taifa letu la Kenya iingie kwa mikono ya watu wengine.
Judges and magistrates will soon be trained on how to write judgments fast and in an efficient manner so as to deal with the case backlog in the judiciary. Chief Justice Martha Koome says case backlog in the judiciary is a problem that affects the running of the department, further urging Kenyans to embrace alternative dispute resolution.
One of the areas that we really feel challenged as the judiciary is in clearing the backlog of cases that we have. And this happens because we perhaps need to change the way that we write judgments. We write long rulings and spend a lot of time dealing with principles. We keep writing long stories, and therefore the judgment writing takes a long time.
Some leaders in Ukambani want to form the next government through UDA, insisting that the community has been left out due to forming alliances that failed to form government. Led by Machakos Town MP Victor Munyaka, they argue that the community had been isolated from the government for a long time, something that must change.
Unajua wale wengine wanahangaika dunia uko nje wakitafuta vile wataungana kikabila ili waongoze Kenya kikabila.
Mahali maneno iko mzito na mpaka tuelezane na tuongeleshane kama watu wa Machakos. Ni serikali kuundwa tutakuwa wapi?
503 people tested positive for COVID-19 from a sample size of 4,060 tested in the last 24 hours. The positivity rate is 12.4%, with total confirmed infections rising to 194,310. 769 patients recovered from the virus, 523 from the home-based isolation and care program, while 246 were discharged from various health facilities countrywide. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
So apparently there were some demolitions that were taking place along Kangundo Road yesterday near Komaji Dandora. Now because of that, there's some protests taking place. So drive with caution as you approach Umoja and Saika areas of Kangundo Road, because bonfire has been lit on the roads by protesters following the demolition of structures along the road last night. Demolitions taking place at night. It's the order of our day, isn't it? And then now there's some other accidents that has been reported. Accident at Kampala near Getaru on the Nairobi-Nakuru highway involving a Nissan. When you hear a Nissan, you just know it's a matatu. And a lorry, Isuzu, no casualties to report, but that is causing some issue on that road. What's happening on Jogoo Road? Just like I said, Makadara area coming on Jogoo Road, heading towards town. It's busy as you approach City Stadium roundabout. It's not so bad, but Landis Road is crazy. Mombasa Road into town from Nyayo Stadium going into Uhuru Highway is all mad. Wilson Airport area heading towards Mbagathi Way on Langata Road. It has started being busy. Ngong Road at Golf Course Estate is busy heading into town. Westlands coming towards town as you approach the Museum Hill interchange is also busy. Our usual suspect, that's Thika Superhighway. Now, yes, all the way into Pangani at the underpass into Wangari Maathai Road is also crazy. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
It's 5 minutes after 7 o'clock. Very good morning to you. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. If you're just joining us, in the room with you is Eric Latif, C.T. Muga, and Wanjiru Gikonyo. We have a guest in the studio. His name is Dennis Odongo.
You really must point a finger at someone or something. You point a finger at the cassava. Who told it to be tasteless and hard?
Maybe the farmer.
CT wants to expand his repertoire to comedy. That's a good one.
Told you to be hard and tasteless.
We'll eat you anyway.
Oh, you think we're going to blame the farmer? We are not blaming the farmer. We
It's
know
the
your
cassava.
games. You cassava.
You cassava, we know you. Tumekuonea 18.
Yes.
Dennis Odongo, journalist and founder of The Wellness Tribe, joins us in the studio. Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning, Latin.
How are you?
Niko salama sana, and you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too, bro.
Yes, I worked with this gentleman in the last century.
The previous century?
The previous century.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Dennis, The Wellness Tribe.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. What's that?
So, the Wellness Tribe, pretty much, it's an organization that wants to mainstream the prevalent mental health issues we're facing in this country, but link them to the breakdown of governance structures or the governance issues we have in this country. One of them being corruption. But also, we're going to go further to link gender-based violence to the state of mental health. We have what we call adverse childhood experience, basically about some of the 10 issues people have gone through and how that is leading to some of the major chronic illnesses we see in this country. There's a whole lot of work that has been done around this in the Western world, but in this country, we are still stuck in defining mental health from a medical perspective only, without looking at it as a symptom of a breakdown of social structures and a breakdown of governance structure. That's what my organization does.
Take a step back. You talked about adverse
childhood experience. So there's something called adverse childhood experience. This is a test that is available globally. I don't know why we don't do it in Kenya here. But if you went through certain experiences, including abandonment, or maybe you had a parent who perhaps suffered from drug and substance abuse, maybe you were abused, there are about 10 of them. So if you tick at least 4 of those things, you are likely to struggle with drugs and substance abuse. You're likely to struggle with the top leading chronic illnesses that kills adults, including high blood pressure, cancer, depression, and all these things. We don't talk about this in this country because I don't know whether we don't know or maybe we're just more consumed with the curative aspect of this thing.
What do the experts say?
The expert, what would you mean by the expert say?
Those experts in mental health, what do they say? Why is it not mainstreamed?
It's not mainstream because I think we are still at very formative stages of this conversation around mental health. We were barely talking about it, but now we are talking about it. So now what we are basically doing is symptoms of depression, 1, 2, 3, anxiety symptoms are like this, which is fine, and that's there's a place for that. But I believe that people like us who share a heart in, governance structures being the solution to many of the problems that we face, we wanted to take the conversation slightly deeper. And that's why we registered a nonprofit called the Wellness Tribe, where we do research, storytelling, capacity building, and we do experiences just to advance this conversation.
Dennis, when you say that there are countries in the world that have advanced this, and then you compare to our country and say that we are still in the formative stages, you do have a point. But formative from the perspective of mental health through the eyes of health practitioners, medical health practitioners. Because when you talk about health practitioner, you could talk about traditional.
Yes.
Okay? Yeah. And you could talk about other branches of it. Now, the point I'm trying to make here, and I'm going to make the point by asking a question, okay? What you say is true. Because our societal makeup looks at what we call mental health under one label.
Yes.
Madness.
Yes.
But you want to go beyond this and say it isn't just that. So what else is it?
Thank you so much. You're actually absolutely true. Right, because the Kenya mental health policy actually recognized the place of traditional healers in tackling this mess. But then we have what we call the Quality Rights, which is a World Health Organization's policy document that is supposed to guide how we deal with mental health. And they're making this grand proposal of us going back to what we call community recovery centers as the a silver bullet to deal with mental health issues, So you find that the biggest problem we have is that we have these huge institutions where we take people from Mandera everywhere and they come to Madari Teaching and Referral Mental Health Hospital. And then when they go back home, they cannot be reintegrated. But what we could actually do is to fix the level 2 hospital in Mandera, to fix, the home where that person lives in Mandera, because there is a correlation between the kind of home people live in and the explosion of mental health issues. And you could fix their employment opportunities in Mandera so that then they don't have to be strained and be removed from their social structures, where now they have to battle traffic jam and come and eat food that God knows where it's planted. You all know where our kales come from, So all these things compromise the mental health. But now you find that the level where we are right now, which is a brilliant place, and I've been part of this conversation for the last 3 years, is that we are still talking about it's okay not to be okay. Fantastic. But when we're done talking about it's okay not to be okay, then let's ask, why is it that they say that 2 out of 4 people who go to the hospital are likely to have a mental health disorder? Why is it that when we did the survey in Nairobi, 38% of young people between the ages of 18 and 35 are living their worst life, their worst possible life? Why is it that we are not talking about the correlation between joblessness and mental health? And why is it that we're not talking about the 600 billion or the third of Kenya's budget that is cutted away? Why are we not saying that, okay, this money is what is robbing young people of the opportunities? It's robbing them of their jobs. It's robbing them of their peace of mind. And this is leading to the explosion of mental health. And there is a scholar who actually did a fantastic job, the Rest of the Earth. Talks about when you see an explosion of mental health, you basically are seeing a society that is breaking down.
You're talking about Frantz Fanon.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've brought in the study that you conducted. Tell us about the study, the background, and how you conducted this study, and then you'll tell us what the findings.
Okay, so we basically wanted to find out, because when you talk about corruption in this country, people usually want to box you in us versus them. So either you're supporting Jubilee or you're supporting NASA. We said, no, that's such a very narrow way. So let's look at what are the common things that people struggle with in this country. So it's livelihood, basically, food, shelter, clothing. And we said, let's sample, because the amount of money we had was only enough to do a survey in Nairobi. So we said, we will look at the perceived political leaning, looking at the MP that was voted in that constituency. We look at the urban, whether it's urban or peri-urban. We look at the religious leaning, and then we look at the perceived social class. But of course, we also look at the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, in terms of narrowing this. And then we selected 9 constituencies in Nairobi we're looking at the 50% of constituents in Nairobi, there are about 18 of them. And then we basically did a 94% response rate. We had a 5% confidence rate. And then we issued this through what we call a computer-assisted personal interviews, where we basically, did the questionnaire in a tool that could even geolocate where these questionnaires were being administered, so that we wanted to be sure not people are sitting in their houses and filling these forms, And then it was analyzed using SPSS version 26 statistical software because of its high accuracy and reliability. And that survey was done in the month of May, from the date of 19th May to 22nd of May 2021.
What are you asking?
The questions we were asking were as simple as, we're looking at the age, first of all. Then we're looking at the monthly household income. We're looking at the living situation. We're looking at rent. And this was very interesting because we found out that 55% of our respondents pay rent between 1,000 and 5,000 Kenyan shillings, which then makes you wonder why we should not deal with rent control rather than all this obsession with affordable housing. And education, we found out that 43% of young people are just secondary education, but we are so obsessed with university. And the question we're asking, first of all, is, for example, the perception about corruption. We asked people that when you hear the word corruption, what comes to mind? You'd be shocked what young people say, that politician comes to mind at 31%. When you mention the word corruption, politician comes to mind.
Followed by?
Bribe at 27%.
Followed by?
Thief at 26%.
Followed by?
BBI at 8%. Hustler at 6%. Businessman at 2%. Police comes much lower.
So in terms of perceptions, young people are right on it.
Exactly. They see politicians and they see their money cutted away. Period.
So people know.
Exactly.
Even the youth know.
Exactly.
What struck me with the demographics was you talk about this household income being between 1,000 to 10,000. What also concerned me, you talk about rent being up to 5,000, household income up to 10,000, and I was like, my God.
Exactly.
That's not a living wage. Then the other thing that struck me is the number of young people still living at home.
Exactly.
So I'm like, these demographics are painting a picture of young people who don't have options.
Absolutely.
And I was then also, the last point, really concerned with the 43% secondary education. 11% up to only primary.
Exactly.
In this day and age.
Exactly.
And
what
then there was
about
this
the 43%?
Outliers of 17% at university got university level education, 2% got masters. That you have people, you're assuming that 18 years and above, they finish their education process. So that means 43 have not managed to get tertiary level. That's a concern.
Why do you consider it to be of such great concern?
It's of concern because of opportunities and options. If you're looking for a job or you're trying to place somebody, if you have a course, whether it is masonry, whether it is hair, a course makes you more employable, makes you better able to earn for yourself, right? And government has, let's even leave government. The education system is supposed to put as many people as possible going into tertiary through the TVET system.
This education system that we have?
Through the TVET system.
Yeah, through the TVET. Huh?
Through TVET. And TVET, by the way...
Post-secondary education.
And TVET, if you've been reading this year, there's money. Young people aren't going for TVETs. There's, very negative view of it. But anyway, let's not digress. 43% is very high.
But let me just add to what
60% if you count the primary level.
Yeah, what Shiro is saying, the biggest problem we are facing in this country is underemployment, But if you look at also just, I'm a believer that we are a democracy, and a democracy is supposed to be driven by the views of the public. So if the views of the public, maybe assuming that we're going to have elections next year in 2022, and we have a manifesto.
Not assuming.
We're going to have elections. Yes, when you have elections.
Oh, no. He's
Don't
right.
bring a doubt.
He is
Don't
right.
fix a doubt in the mind of Kenyans. Do not buy that narrative.
No. It is not fixing
the
a
law
doubt.
says.
It is being real.
It is being real. Because if we understand our political class, that they may want to subvert what is in the Constitution is a reality.
Verbal engineering precedes actual
Dennis, continue.
engineering. So
we have elections next year, then you have people of that, like in terms of that, and you give them documents, bottom-up approach. You give them buy, build in Kenya, political policies, and then you tell them to now choose a leader based on those. And they barely have.
When you say bottom-up approach, my mind, just like the mind of the young people who went to politician, my mind goes to hustler. My mind goes to ODM.
Exactly.
What do you mean bottom-up approach?
I'm not saying that I want to dwell on that. All I'm saying is this.
No, I want... Our audience has been hearing and reading about this bottom-up approach. I'd like you to explain it the way you understand it. What does it mean, bottom-up approach?
Let me first of all finish up the statement I was saying.
Please go ahead.
That these young people who you look at their education level and you look at their living standards, these people are more susceptible to be deceived, they're more susceptible to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off for violence or for 1,000 shillings for their vote. And then ultimately we come up and blame them and say, oh, you know what, by the way, young people are corrupt. Young people are like this. This is a choice you make. You've already defrauded people of an opportunity to make an informed decision. Why are you blaming them? Then we are the ones who are supposed to say as a country that because we have neglected a huge population and a huge demographic, let us live with the consequences of our lack of policy in terms of education, in terms of ensuring that these people... And by the way, the biggest issue is that, when you grow up in a poor home, chances of you going to school post-secondary is very difficult. Absolutely, because, you have Nairobi being 60% informal settlements. You have these people who are waking up in the morning, jumping over sewage. They left a home where perhaps parents are fighting at night. You go to school, you find a teacher who's frustrated because they also come from the same neighborhood. And then you expect them to pass. And then ultimately we come here and say, this country is punishing many young people.
And remember, we're a middle-income country. That's where we are
not a middle-income country.
I'm saying on paper, that's where we are setting ourselves.
We are a third world banana republic. This middle-income story, those who started it know why they started it. We are nowhere near being middle-income.
And this data is supporting you exactly.
You see,
Danish, an entire
even as you say this, you see, Danish is focusing. Remember, this is his method. It was purposive sampling. It's deliberate. He determines it. This isn't random.
No, the purposive sampling was in choosing the constituencies.
Nothing wrong. Yeah. But the moment you do that, my friend, what do you think takes place? You've already determined how it is. Nothing wrong with that method, by the way. As far as qualitative research is concerned, it is considered a good method. I'm not downplaying the method. I think it is a good method. I'm simply saying that when you focus the idea on the youth within an urban setting,
yes,
how does that reflect on the youth who are not in an urban setting? Because the vast majority of our population is still not in our towns. It is in the rural areas. That is where I was going with my question.
I agree with you. And now, you're very absolutely right. And of course, now moving forward with our Macho campaign, we are hoping that then we're going to do a groundbreaking work early next year to spread it across maybe at least 24 counties in this country. But we wanted, first of all, just to see, because I don't like talking about some things without really evidence and facts. And because of limited resources, we said, let's start with
Talk about what you have.
Let's start with Kanairo, yeah.
So I love the term macho.
Yeah.
What are you seeing? Because macho is macho ya kuona. It's also macho, this kind of like bravado, or what are you trying to bring across?
I got this from the scriptures, the book of Matthew, that talks about if your eyes are bad, then your whole soul is bad, because it's the entry of the soul is the eye. So for us, we're looking at it that if you empower people's eyes, you open their eyes and you let them see, then they're able to make informed decisions. And that's where the data comes in, because we wanted people to see Nairobi for what it is, not for these multiple layers and gentrification that has been done to it. So the idea is to remove the cataract of ignorance, and it's to remove, the layers of, media narrative that we've consumed for many years, and tell people what Nairobi it is. And then people can now make decisions knowing
which people are you having the conversation with?
Young people. We're basically telling them that this is your state in Nairobi. You may be coming from Mukuru Kanjenga, but you're not so different from a young person who's coming from Makadara. You share the same narrative. By the only outlier in this research was in Langata. Langata, we found very high levels of optimism, very high levels of excitement, which we'd love to know. But
it's a good comparative.
A very good comparative. And Makadara was like the highest form of people who are living their worst life found in Makadara in our research. I don't know the
Makadara.
Makadara.
Do they explain?
That's interesting.
So what was the question there that brings out that answer that I'm living my worst life?
The question we asked people that imagine yourself in a ladder, worst being 1, best being 10. And then we asked yourself, where do you see yourself? People see themselves. Of course, we did a comparative study and we found out that there's a correlation between political leaning, there's a correlation between, when you go Kombele, you find that when people are talking about the issues that are of concern to them, unemployment was leading in Makadara. So then you find that then there's a correlation between that and their optimism level.
Tell us about political leaning. That's fascinating. Is there a correlation, or is
there
that
is
random?
a correlation between? I think political narrative affects how people perceive reality. When you come from a political, a political formation that sells a particular narrative, you're likely to believe in that narrative.
All right.
Yes, and that now affects how you see the world around you, whether it's true or not.
Explain that. What do you mean by political narrative? I can see you're moving away from political leaning. You don't want to support one party or the other.
Yeah.
So what are you saying? Break it down a little bit more. What kind of narratives are you saying? So you're saying the narratives of politicians and the way it's perceived by the youth shapes the way the youth then view their life and their state of well-being.
Exactly. If your political leaders are constantly saying things are bad, we're not doing well, this country is doomed, and this is the side, and well, it may be real or may not be real, that's what the political leaning would perceive. Then you have this other side who are saying things are good, we are winning, we are the best. While that may not be real, you may find somebody in this political extraction who actually believes that they're living their best life while they're missing on all the indicators of best life. They're living in a horrible neighborhood, they're eating horrible food, but because their political class are saying this, then they're likely to believe that.
So the politicians are really influencing the youth.
Exactly. I don't even think it's politicians, it's us here who determine the headline, who determines the stories coming at 5, at 7.
So political narrative is not politicians, it is maybe the media.
Yeah, exactly. I've been a journalist, and if you go to cover political rally, they will talk for 10 hours or 6 hours. The editor will only take maybe 2 minutes or 3 minutes of that. How do we determine that if it's not to push a narrative?
So what are the influences? What's influencing political narratives, and what do you then propose needs to happen to those
what
political
now we're proposing
narratives?
the second phase of this
because you've done
survey.
the same thing. You see, you've taken this issue and then you're talking about lack of wellness and perception. So you're also fueling the negative narrative. So what are you saying?
What we are saying is this. We're not fueling the negative narrative. We wanted to find facts from the people. What we are saying here are what young people say, not us. Us, we're just the messengers. What we're going to do next is want to find out the correlation between media and some of these things that we are talking about. And hopefully we are going to, encourage media literacy and media awareness all through, because the consumption of media is the biggest influence in this country of perceptions in this country. Because we also ask that where do you get your facts about corruption, sources of corruption? TV at 16%. That's why people know. We ask them, where do you access information about corruption in Kenya? TV is at 16%, Facebook at 15%, radio at 14%, WhatsApp 11%, Twitter 10%, newspapers and magazines 7%. So TV is still the biggest influencer in terms of perception.
Did your survey point to, for instance, expectancy levels and whether the environment in which someone lived determined that?
Not really. But we could actually do that by extrapolating this data and looking at the key life indicators in different constituencies and different hospitals.
When you mentioned Makadara, Makadara, which Makadara?
The Makadara constituency.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there's a reason why I'm asking the question about Makadara. You see, there's a term that psychologists use. They call it cognitive dissonance.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, if my expectation is not met, an expectation is arrived at by the narrative that I consume or is presented to me.
Exactly.
Some from a very early stage in my life, whether it's from within the family or, as we're saying, from politicians. If that isn't met, it tends to cause a conflict. It's an internal conflict. Now, that internal conflict then manifests itself. For instance, if you have a by-election, you will see it manifesting itself.
Exactly.
Promise, reality, don't concur, conflict. You then produce a situation where people start looking for an opportunity where ordinarily they wouldn't have sought an opportunity. Now, why do I bring this? You talk about Langata and what you found in Langata. That is supposed to be a middle-class area.
Exactly.
So if people have expectations, you look around you, there are people who've had expectations that have been met. You take it to the low-income areas, you find expectations may exist, but it isn't quite met because of all these socioeconomic situations and the societal hurdles that these people have to overcome in order to achieve whatever it is that they sought. Now, here comes my question. The vast majority of the population in this particular city live in those so-called informal settlements.
Exactly.
Okay? They are the ones who form the bulk of that voting population, whether it is at MCA level, whether it is MP level. Now you tell me, anyone who comes with a promise, whatever the promise is, your argument seems to be that, well, they'll choose one or the other. But I am saying they will choose the now.
Exactly.
And why would they be choosing the now?
Because it's something they can relate to a lot more easily.
And also
because of their current situation.
Yes, because of what they've been fed. Their lived experience has been, this future never really counts because you're born in a slum, you live there. So this future that people keep talking about, you realize this thing, I don't think it's going to come. So when you have three options, the future, the this, and the now, you choose the now.
You
But
deal
you're
with the
also
now.
operating on survival mode.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to say. That.
Let's take a break.
Yeah.
Then we continue with that. Right. So we can also link that then to the mental health status because that's what you are.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, we'll come back to the mental health issue. 7:30, Kenya's biggest conversation takes a break. And as we do that, okay, jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. Chemonix International is looking for an engineering and non-clinical oxygen support consultant. Not one. It's in plural, consultants. So if you feel that you qualify for that, please log on to jobs.standardmedia.co.ke and check. Civil Logistics is looking for head of ground and rail East Africa. Amani Luxury Apartments looking for hotel general manager. Summit Recruitment and Search looking for procurement assistant, a farm general manager, an accounts receivable. And then also Airtel is looking for a treasury manager. African Management Institute is looking for a program manager. Gratitude India is looking for a UI and UX developer. Sales and marketing representative is being looked for by Index Fund Group Limited. All these and many other jobs you can find on jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. If you don't find a job that's relevant to you today, just subscribe. You will receive an SMS alert or an email alert whenever a job that is in your line is listed. This is a platform that's run by Standard Media. So you can basically know that we've done the background checks that the organizations that I've listed here actually do exist. And the jobs most likely do exist. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Shell Helix HX7 and HX8 with Flexi Molecule technology, an engine oil that overcomes today's tough driving conditions and actively adapts to changing engine temperatures. Shell Helix. Drive on.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
The COVID-19 pandemic has reminded us that knowing how to spot fake news can be the difference between life and death. The spread of fake news has national implications too. Is your governor really delivering on his campaign promises? Or does the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission have a watertight case against him? It all boils down to the news you consume. That's why SpiceFM and its partners have created the Fighting Fakes Media Literacy campaign to help Kenyans become more discerning news consumers. We'll show you how to take care before you share. Tune in to the Situation Room from 6 a.m. every weekday morning for refreshing and profitable conversations about the facts and only the facts.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Do your callers frequently ask you what stories made the news headlines? Introducing the Call Bulletin, courtesy of Skiza. You can now keep your callers informed and up to date with the latest news updates from KTN News, courtesy of Skiza. Dial star 811 star 795 hash to subscribe today. Set the tone with Skiza.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're
is it going
listening
to be a
to
warm day
Spice.
today, or is it going to be a cold day today? Well, it'll be a mostly cloudy day today in Nairobi at 24 degrees. Mombasa, light rains at 29. Malindi, rain showers at 28. Kakamega, mostly sunny day at 28. Kisumu, mostly sunny day at 30. Eldoret, sunny day at 23. Nakuru, sunny day at 25. And Nyeri, cloudy day at 21. In Dar es Salaam, we're going to have light rains there, 29. Johannesburg is currently 0 degrees. Lows of -3 degrees and highs of 10 in Johannesburg. Lagos, mostly clear skies at 29. Kinshasa, mostly cloudy day at 31. Beijing, 28 currently. Light rains. The temperature is going to drop to 27 as they head towards the night. And then Paris, France, sunny day at 29. It's hazy in London at 18 degrees presently. The temperature is going to rise to 28. New York, clear skies. Highs of 27 later today.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
So people are complaining. Traffic policemen should never be walking majestically in the middle of the road as if they have contracts with braking systems. Utagongwa. That's a comment that's been made, and yes, it makes a lot of sense. So what's happening on the roads? Thika Superhighway, yes, you understand where you are. It starts all the way from Utalii, comes up to the Pangani Drift. Thika Kiambu Road is busy as you approach Muthaiga, as you expect. Jogoo Road, as you approach City Stadium Roundabout, is now busy all the way from Makadara to City Stadium Roundabout. Landis Road is busy. And then Uhuru Highway from Nyayo Stadium is busy all the way up to the Museum Hill Interchange. Chiromo Road is then clear. And then you get to Wayaki Way. After Westlands Roundabout, it starts getting busy, especially as you head out of town because road construction. Langata Road, you know, as you approach the Mbagathi Interchange, it's busy. And so now this time the traffic has snaked all the way back into Nairobi Dam Estate. Ngong Road is not so bad as you approach town, and then Mombasa Road you expect. Imara Daima, the usual suspect as you approach General Motors, is also busy. Anything that you think we ought to alert everybody else about, Spice of MKE or 40127. That's our SMS number.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done
The conversation
right.
continues at 23 minutes to 8 o'clock. Our guest in the studio today is Danisha Dongo. He is founder of the Wellness Tribe. They have just released some research findings after a report, some research that they did, Macho Baseline Survey, reimagining the fight against corruption. And before we went to the break, City has talked about, okay, so there's where your respondents live, where they've come from, there's the expectations that they've had as they grew up, and then there's a reality. And then bring in a politician who comes and tells them all these lofty ideas about the future. What are they going to be thinking about? The future that they're yet to see or the present?
But I think just Danish told us it's not just politicians, it's also the media that shape youth perceptions. And in my mind, I love the research. I also like the fact that you're bringing out the issue of adverse childhood experiences as a really potentially blocking out an entire demographic from active engagement in the community and in development. Very good research, which you then want to use to empower the youth. These youth are still then going to be confronted by systems that aren't responsive, systems that have not invested in the community health level. So how do you want to bridge the use of data, empowerment of the youth, to the governance results that are required, or to the health investments that are required to deal with the problems?
Thank you so much, Shiro. I just want to respond to that first, then I come to yours. I don't know why we don't talk about this in the world, in Kenya, but there's overwhelming evidence that poverty affects the executive function part of the brain. That executive function is part of the brain that is about self-control, emotional control, decision-making, and all these things. It affects these things because poverty is violence, poverty is trauma. So you find that young people are likely to make, poor people are likely to make bad choices because even evidence has been proven that they lose, because of poverty, you can lose up to 13 IQ points when you go through poverty, because poverty is one of the adverse childhood experiences. So when now they're not able to live in future, if they're not able to save and to make better decisions, it's not because they are bad people or they are broken. It's because the environment they grew up in has disempowered them like that. And that's why we must all fight poverty, because poverty is the biggest. And sometimes we look at them that if you're poor, it's your problem. But look at what we are losing in terms of human potential for this country. We want to compete with China. We want to compete with global giants. How are we going to compete with global giants when a huge percentage of your population are still dealing with basic things like food, shelter, and clothing? Now, coming back to you, the reason why I'm in the mental health space, but I've always told them that we must connect struggles. The mental health challenges, like for example, I'm a person with a lived experience. When I was home last year during the COVID pandemic, I could not get my medication in Kisumu. I had to make a phone call, and Dr. Siengo is the one who wrote for me a prescription. Then I came to Nairobi for me to get my medication. Now imagine we're living in a country where you're not able to get medical help in a place like Kisumu. Now think about somebody who's in Mandera. Think about somebody who's in Mombasa, But even if you go to Mathare Teaching and Referral Hospital, you find that they have a list of drugs that they give. This list of drugs is supplied by KEMSA. In public health hospital, you're likely to find only basic. So you find like conditions like ADHD, or you find conditions like schizophrenia or bipolar or some of these things. You're not likely to find medication. Now, to sort these things, we need to connect struggles. We need to talk about, debt. We need to talk about the broken down governance structure so that then we fix the governance structure so that the money, because this 2 billion shillings that is lost per day, we did the maths. That 2 billion shillings can give up to 2 million young people cash transfers per month of 10,000 shillings. You've only spent 200 million shillings of that money. You go ahead and buy them lunch, breakfast, and you give them supper. It's only 350 shillings in the slums. You've only spent, barely enough. You've not even reached the billion mark. You go ahead and decide, how do you love to dress up? Because people in these areas love to dress up from tush. You still are not spending even 1 billion shillings, which means that this money that is stolen, and that's why I'm so passionate about this issue, that the third of our budget that is stolen either through budgeted corruption or through debt corruption or through brazen theft, this money, if we seal all these loopholes, we fix this country. Not in 10 years, we fix this country in at least 5 years. We've fixed everything. We've fixed affordable housing. We've fixed rural economy. We've fixed our infrastructure. We've fixed all that we need to become a middle-income economy. But we don't have the political will. That's why we must come together as young people and make mental health and all these issues we are facing a political issue, not a medical issue.
Danish, for mental health to be understood for what it actually is, I think it must be broken down in a way that we move from the concept of madness, as we call it, to understanding that when you're anxious, you are in the process of acquiring a mental health situation. May not be an illness. This will lead you to depression.
Exactly.
Now, with the depression comes all manner of other things. Exactly. Now, speaking just colloquially, you are okay. You're just a bit sad, but you're actually not sad. Now, it is the position that many people find themselves in this country right now with COVID. You tell people that they are no longer going to be able to earn what they were earning. Causes anxiety. Somebody doesn't have the job they had, and yet the responsibilities that they had haven't gone anywhere. That anxiety is going to go into depression. Now, this is a situation that many people are facing now because of COVID, but it's a situation that people who live in the low rent areas, as we call them, they face on a daily basis. So if you're talking about a mental health situation in some of those areas, then you're saying, in my view, that the biggest problem you have in these areas are mental health issues.
Exactly.
Because if you're dealing with this situation every single day,
exactly,
it's scarred for life.
And there's a glimmer of light. It may be a flicker, and then it goes off as soon as it comes.
It's self-perpetuating.
Yes.
It's teenage pregnancy is going to happen much earlier.
Extrajudicial execution.
And then,
going to happen.
Drug abuse. It's a vicious cycle. Let me put it this way: it's a terrible vicious cycle.
Exactly.
In fact, it's a crime against the poor. Exactly. And I like what you said, that we need to get rid of poverty.
Exactly.
We need to prioritize the fight against poverty. And like I said, we're a lower middle income country.
Which country?
With these kind of demographics, we need to speak truth to power that we are lying. We are lying when a large demographic has been left out.
I don't know what I'm expecting, but somehow I'm feeling like we are not connecting the research findings directly to mental health. Or there's something that's missing here in the link between what you found. The respondents told you this. They told you how their expectations about the future, and they're telling you they don't have much expectation. Currently, they're feeling very low. But then now the connection between that and mental health. So we can then say, you see, mental health is being impacted by a broken governance system, like you said. I'm fine. There's a missing link for me when I look at this.
Okay.
The research. I don't know how it can be brought in.
Would you have wanted a survey on the actual status of their mental health?
There is a link.
Population.
There actually is a link. Eric is saying he doesn't see it. There is a link. One of the things that perpetual poverty does, among the many things it does for you, it provides you with an eternal low self-esteem.
Exactly.
Meaning, you always see yourself as an individual who can't do much. You can't achieve much. Meaning, you set the bar low. Now, if you set the bar low, anything that you may consider untoward, you will more or less consider it as normal.
Exactly.
Just like the people, what we are considering poverty, that to them is normal. Now, this normalcy that Danish and his group, in my view, found in the places where they conducted their research, it is this perpetuity of the situation that not just contributes, but has made mental health a serious issue, because the people have a problem which they don't even recognize as a problem, because that for them
it's their lived
it's their lived experience. That's how they go about life. Exactly. Now, even when somebody moves from there economically, gets an education, maybe gets a job, goes to university, gets a skill, that mind doesn't quite leave you.
Exactly.
This is part of the problem. It doesn't quite leave you.
It stays with you.
Yes, it does.
And that is clear when you have the conversation.
Yes.
Now, the point I'm making is probably because you have the data, it's the interpretation of the data that maybe need that other side, the scientific side, the expert input from somebody who is an expert on matters of mental health to come and look at the data, look at the information, and connect those dots. So it comes out clearly that this is what is happening. Because what you want to do with this information is you want it to influence policy in the future.
Exactly.
How do we connect this, what we are seeing? Because what you are seeing today has been found by other surveys that are conducted. Whenever the Infotrucks and the others are conducting a survey, they come up with the same. Are you happy with the way the government is running? Are you happy? Are you feeling satisfied? And people are, do you have hope for the future? People tell you the same things that they are saying. What's your income level? Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, and you said you also refer to that, has all this information.
Exactly.
The tie, the link between that and now directly into, you see, what we've been doing is we have failed to mainstream mental health, but this is what all this information that we have is telling us.
You know, the poverty that you speak of, we are talking about economic poverty, but the thing that concerns me is the poverty of the spirit. That's what really because if I'm physically disempowered, or my poverty has to do with financial lack, or it has to do with an economic situation, it's something that I can overcome. But if I've internalized it to the point where I am unable to break that barrier and see myself beyond a certain, so I can't see myself doing certain things. In essence, I don't believe I can achieve or do certain things. That is worse, because then, even when the opportunity is presented, somebody will have imprisoned themselves in that particular mindset.
Yeah.
So even the opportunities will be lost. Now, that is a huge loss. As you were talking, you know where my mind went to? I thought of crowds of young people during this. Every time we have an electoral cycle around the corner, if you drive a big car, one of these four-wheel guzzlers, you stop, a crowd forms around you. And if you look at the monies that they're given, if they really do well, they'll split 50 bob. Or rather, they'll get 50 shillings each. Now, it points to a mental health situation, because what on earth are you going to do with 50 shillings, even if it's the rural areas? In all honesty, what is this thing that you're going to do with 50 shillings? And yet people don't stop doing this thing over and over and over again. What has gotten into their minds where someone doesn't pause and say, excuse me, is this really worth my while?
Can I just pick up on that? Because I like what you're saying. We've had on this program conversations about, and in the country, what's wrong with Kenyans. And I think we are now beginning to point towards some of these disconnects, the internalized poverty and all of that. I'd also want to say that the value of this research, which asks very interesting, simple questions, is this kind of conversation. So once you begin discussing the data, you then get, well facilitated, you bring out these issues. I want to just say, so I like this, and bearing the point that Eric is saying, that maybe tease out the issue, the linkage a little bit more. But my question is, I would like to go back a little bit to the religion factor. Did you find a correlation, any trends around religion and wellness? Or not?
Not really, we didn't find. But I wanted to also respond to Eric. Eric, the definition of mental health is a person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well-being. How do you tell a person's emotional well-being? Apart from using what we call the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, which is a medical tool, which is only limited to diagnosing depression, anxiety, you ask them about their view of life, how they feel about their country, how they feel about the future. Those will tell you about the emotional well-being state. So that there is the link. Because the problem we are trying to run away from, this is how we defeated HIV. We've not defeated it, but this is how we contended.
Yes.
We brought in psychologists, sociologists, we brought in economists, we brought in even local religious leaders.
We brought in everybody.
Integrated approach.
Yes, but the mental health conversation in this country is only limited to psychologists and psychiatrists. Why? We need researchers, we need people like you, we need all of us to
I completely
deal with
agree.
this issue.
I completely agree. What you're doing is good.
Yes.
Now let's bring in the entire ecosystem.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly,
So that if we have now the expert saying true from an expert point of view, there are issues. When you have people who also have studied psychology, not just the psychiatrists, the psychologists as well, and then you bring in the political economists and all, will tie in that link very well. And when you go back now to the people and tell them, look, this is what is happening, people can also start relating to my status today is impacted by what is happening.
Exactly.
And for me to start getting out of this, I've got to start addressing my current situation this way.
Eric, in addition to what you're saying, the reason why I brought in the poverty of spirit and what I want to tie it in with, if you look at your findings, you are talking about the low-rent areas that we have in this. But I want you to take that argument, pause for a single second, and look at our political leaders.
Exactly.
That is where the real mental problem is. That class of people are unwell. No. I'm not saying this facetiously. I'm being sincere. Because if you look at the decision-making process, the short-sighted nature of the way they go about things, and the responsibility that they have, and the dichotomous nature where someone says this today, says this tomorrow, and doesn't seem to have a problem with it, these people are not well.
They haven't resolved their internalized poverty, perhaps.
And look at their backgrounds. If you look at the key politicians' background, it will tell you why they behave the way they do. So a mental health conversation, like you've said, is true. We need it up to the highest form of level.
Interesting. Can I just go back on the religion thing? I'm surprised that there's no correlation with religion and wellness outlook.
What were you thinking, Wanjiru? What was
That
on your
we'd see a
mind?
disparity.
Religion
because-
represents hope.
Yeah, hope,
It does.
and they have different approaches. If religion is very significant in my life, it should.
But
affect
maybe that's
how I-
why we haven't had an explosion.
Because
of the religious factor.
It
tapers.
No, but you see, in
it
the
provides,
study,
yes.
there's no
Did
correlation.
they consider? No.
Did they consider?
Did you consider? Because that's where you need to start from.
We actually did consider, and I'm looking at because what I sent is the abridged version, but we actually did consider the correlation between the Catholics, Protestants, Muslims, and their
Evangelicals and
this
what
thing
have
is
you.
And
huge.
atheists.
And yeah, exactly. This thing was huge. It was almost like 100 pages. Let me look for that, then I'll
Yeah,
let me-
because you'd expect to see some variation in terms of the type of dogma and approach being
Exactly.
adopted, or none, because maybe religion is what we do on Sunday.
You
and
know,
then
not
move to daily life.
not to pour
Maybe.
water on someone's faith or lack of it thereof, but the group of atheists that we have, one may say it's a budding group, but well, yeah, I mean, statistically they're
Budding, it's interesting.
yeah,
They're growing.
statistically they're irrelevant. I mean, if you ask someone in this country whether
Not
they have
irrelevant. We're not
Where they've
voting
come
here,
across.
but point made. They're a small group.
not small, insignificant. That's the point I'm trying to make. Even statistically speaking, they would not feature in influencing anything that we could consider significant. That's what I'm saying. I'm not downplaying it. I'm simply stating it as a fact.
But we may see some trend in terms of outlook,
But
comparative trend.
But let me say this also.
Yeah.
The title of the survey is to reimagine the fight against corruption. Number one, we have over 14 statutes that have been enacted by this country to deal with corruption. Majority of them have been enacted from 2013, when the dynamic duo have been in power. But we are seeing the correlation between amounts of money carted away increasing considerably with more establishment of bodies, empowering of these bodies, and giving more money. You know very well that the ODPP was just, their budgets were increased for this financial year, I think about 36 billion shillings. Then the question is, if we have all the laws and we have all the bodies, but we are seeing a lot of money increasing, perhaps is it time for us to consider other ways of fighting with graft? Because there is a huge disconnect. Young people, when you ask them here, how do you think you should be dealing with corruption? They're saying pass stiffer laws, jail the corrupt, repossess all this, and we have all those bodies. And that's why we are proposing that on the 24th and on the 25th of August, we want to convene a multi-sectoral forum that brings together all these bodies, and we want to ask them these questions. Do we then say that the amount of money we are giving you to fight graft is not effective? We're not getting any return on investment. Or do we say that the political class is just so wise that every time you come up with a law, they find a way to beat it? Or is that we don't have a political?
Or is it that's who we are? Because if you look in the last 30 years, our push has been, let's change the law.
Exactly.
Let's change the constitution.
Yeah.
Let's bring in more laws. Maybe we have wired ourselves as a society to legislate. Every new thing, the solution is legislation, regulation, legislation, regulation. Maybe as a community, as a society, we need to step back and ask ourselves, is the problem being addressed by law? Is law the solution, or are there other solutions?
Or where's the problem?
Where's the problem?
Well, by the way, we have over 31 active cases in court. Only 4 have been successfully prosecuted in terms of jail terms. The rest are not.
But if you consider that possibly the values and the software is the problem, the law's not going to sort the software.
We come up with law.
These laws, in my opinion, are important. They are fundamental, because in the absence of these laws, we really have no leg to stand on.
But we've also
The
learned
problem
that
is
the
we
laws
only
are not
rely
enough.
on the law.
Yeah, we don't need to rely on the law only.
We need an integrated 360 approach.
Yes, we need to have them. However, when I say that if you look at the ruling class and you really have to confess that they are unwell, it is because of the way they go about, should they carrying out their mandate? How do you take an oath of office in public? How do you say the things you say and then you proceed to do the complete opposite? And it seems to be okay with you. Are you okay, really?
Impunity is a big thing. Danish, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank
Again,
you.
You're saying you'll have this meeting on the 24th, 25th of August?
Yes, that's the proposed date.
It'll be interesting to actually get to hear what they say.
Okay.
We can invite you soon after.
Okay.
Come with the summary of what they told you and what you told them, and the conversation on how it happens going forward.
All right.
Asante sana. Danish Odongo is the founder of the Wellness Tribe. They have just conducted that survey that he's been telling us about. It's called the Macho what?
Baseline survey.
Macho Baseline Survey.
Yeah.
Keep it right here. In the next hour, the conversation now moves into next year's general election, expectations in the Constitution, again, legislation, regulation and all. We have said that we should have gender equity and balance in all our institutions of government. Now, in those ones that are political, how well prepared are we to have more women, for example, joining our National Assembly, our Senate, our county assemblies? Do we have more women who are preparing to present themselves and offer themselves up for election in any of these seats? There's a commission called the Gender and Equality Commission, another institution supported by law and the Constitution. Have they been able to move the needle? Good morning. It's now 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Interviews to fill the 4 vacant positions of commissioners at the IEBC continue today. The 3 to be interviewed today are Simon Muket, Timothy Tipia Olenaiku, and Zipi Musimi. The interviews will begin at 9 a.m. Yesterday, 3 candidates, retired Colonel Said Hamid Said, Dr. Salim Demo, and Celestine Anambi Kiluku, were interviewed. Jubilee Party is not rushing for a recount of votes in the Kiambaa by-election, said Secretary General Raphael Tuju. In an interview with KTN, Tuju said that the candidate Kariri Njama is the one pursuing the recount, which is his democratic right if he feels that the election was not free and fair.
That's according to the candidate, and that's the sovereign right of any candidate who has contested an election to demand for a recount and also to petition the results. It's their democratic right, and they do hold that right even above the party. It's only the candidate who can petition, because as a party, we cannot petition.
On losing the by-elections, it said that although the party lost, it's happy with the results because as the sitting government garnering 50% of the vote is a clear indication that Kenyans still have hope with their government.
People who are blamed when young people don't have jobs is the government of the day. They take responsibility. But still in Kiambaa, 50% still gave a vote of confidence to this administration. A by-election is in many respects, some way of finding out, endorsing or gauging the government of the day. So if you get 50% approval rating for a government which has been in office for 9 years, I think it is an extremely good result.
The leadership dispute within Ford Kenya Party is escalating with 2 factions opposing each other. A faction led by Tongaren MP Eseli Simiyu has said that Bungoma Senator Moses Wetangula has no authority to represent the party, insisting that Wetangula was ousted by the party's General Assembly.
Sasa ni miezi 14 tangu Wetangula abanduliwe na National Executive Council kama party leader wa Ford Kenya. Alienda kotini akapata conservatory orders, na hizo orders ndizo anatumia kujipendekeza kuwa yeye bado ni kiongozi wa chama cha Ford Kenya.
These as the other faction relocated their offices headquarters, insisting that Wetangula is the party leader in charge of running the affairs of the party. All school head teachers have been urged to follow the Ministry of Education's guidelines with regards to school fees. Alfred Weswa, an MCA in Trans Nzoia County, asked school heads to engage parents on how fees will be paid, especially now that many parents are struggling to make ends meet due to COVID-19. COVID-19.
Wizara imetoa guidelines ya mambo ya fees. Tunaomba walimu wakuu wa shule hizi zetu za hapa kwamba sababu ya changamoto ya COVID na pia muhula wa masomo umepunguka, kumekuwa na zile fedha za ziada, kuitisha wazazi waweze kuangalia kwamba sababu muda ni mfupi, wasingatie ile fee guidelines so that kusukue na zile fedha zingine zenye zimejificha chini, sababu tumeona muhula umepunguka. Sasa gharama ya kuweka watoto kwa shule itakuwa kidogo kuliko vile ilikuwa hapo awali.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right. So what's happening on the roads? We can see Uhuru Highway is doing its usual thing. So it's busy all the way from Nyayo Stadium roundabout up to Museum Hill. Kiambu Road, joining at Muthaiga, joining the Thika Superhighway, very busy because the traffic starts from Utalii coming all the way to Pangani. Jogoo Road is also crazy, we've said. Makadara all the way to City Stadium roundabout and then Landis Road. Langata Road, the traffic has now snaked. It's actually getting into the southern bypass now. So it's busy, but it gets only up to the Mbagathi Way interchange. And then from there, Mbagathi Way is good. It's flowing. If you have anything that you think that we need to remind everybody about, please let us know by tweeting us, SpiceFMKE, or send us an SMS, 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start
it's 5
your
minutes
day.
after 8. Kenya's biggest conversation gets into the third hour. Thank you very much for joining us this lovely Thursday morning on Spice FM, online, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook or Twitter, and those joining us on KTN Home. CT, today's proverb.
It is not the cook's fault when the cassava turns out to be hard and tasteless.
Ewe.
Yes, it is from the Ewe.
Yeah. Tumekubaliana na wewe. Today you've got it. Yeah.
I don't want to say what I want to say, but let me not say what I want to say.
By the way, Mheshimiwa, Wanjiru is the yardstick for determining whether a proverb actually makes sense or not. Yesterday she demonized me completely. Today, I've been gifted with an approval.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. You're improving.
That's the general idea.
Priscilla Nyokabi is the Mheshimiwa being referred to here. She joins us now. She's the commissioner with the National Gender and Equality Commission and was the first woman MP for Nyeri County. That's why the Mheshimiwa comes in. Karibu to the studio.
Asante.
That's a hot seat. Let's just keep it warm for you. Sure. All right. It's been a cold day where you've come from. So some lovely breakfasts in the offing. Some good work that you do.
Don't hold your breath.
I know, I'm just thinking, hopefully.
What is it?
Don't hold your breath. I've also been told that. And I waited and wondered.
I've been here before. I also didn't get breakfast. I'm wondering, did I miss something last time?
Did you smell anything on your way?
Wanjiru is not telling you the whole story. She's been offered breakfast on many occasions. She turns it down.
Okay.
She tells us we don't have roast vegetables.
Or hard-boiled cassava.
Cassavas are too tasteless. Just because you tested them once. And they say, your people can't cook cassava.
Yes. Stick to your core business, broadcast.
We want to talk about 2022, but also we want to look at it from the gender and equality angle. The work that you do at the Gender and Equality Commission will come in handy, and that's why we have the pleasure of having you in the studio. So, a number of things have happened since 2010. 2010 Constitution says, let us agree as a people to promote gender equality. And not just equality of gender, but equality in all other spheres of our society. And then laws are enacted that say, this is how we're going to promote this. And we fall short in terms of electing, we the citizens, in electing people to balance that gender. Maybe we also fall short because we don't have many candidates who come out, especially women, to present themselves for positions of for elective positions. Now we know former Chief Justice David Maraga, the advisor to the president, with regards to the status of the National Assembly and where that is lying is a whole different issue. But looking forward into next year, into 2022, from the conversations that you've had with people, from your tours around the country, are we likely to have more women offering themselves for positions, for elective positions, MCA level, Senate, National Assembly, Governor, President?
Well, I think that more women are going to come out. That's for sure. We already have good signs around gubernatorial. A lot of the colleagues that I served with in the women rep positions are going for gubernatorial, which I'm personally very happy about. And this is both within the Handshake Coalition and the UDA team. So really, I wish I could mention the names, but let me just not do that. But completely excited about that. And many women have done a good job with the little money that we got in the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. And many of those who've served as CDF, as constituency members of parliament on CDF, also on a good stretch. So a lot of the women leaders we have now are on a good stretch to retaining their positions and to going on to gubernatorial. I think the challenge that is going to be there from where I sit is the transition and the coalitions. There we have a problem because we are going into the fourth president, giving the baton to the fifth president. Lots of heavy coalitions, sort of high-level, hard-hitting coalitions. I fear that level we may not get as much women representation. But gubernatorial, senatorial, member of parliament, member of county assembly, I think that by and large there will be a lot of candidates that run for those positions. And all of the women reps who are now doing first or second term, many of them will go for competitive positions, so which means that the women reps position will also be available for women who want to use that to introduce themselves into politics. That is assuming that the law stays as is. So we are using the Constitution of Kenya 2010 and we are also using the court pronouncements. There is a judgment of court that requires every political party to nominate 2/3 of its candidates of either gender, which is a very good judgment. Wasn't used in 2017. It's going to be used in 2022. So all factors held constant with that decision operating. With more women preparing really to come onto the space, we should see higher numbers of women coming onto the electoral space.
Quality would be, is a big issue then. So we may see more women because political parties may want to tick the box because there's a requirement. So let's tick the box. Let's have more women coming, being nominated. But then, do we actually have the chance, or the chance to have more quality candidates coming out, or is it just pushing people and then the electorate does not feel that these people are qualified enough to be elected?
I think that there will be quality women really coming out to the electoral space. Our elections are not easy, and I'm just happy that Wanjiru is here. Between theory and practice is a whole, sort of hard ball game. You come in fresh and with good ideas, and you soon realize, hii ni shamba la wanyama. So that shamba la wanyama is not exactly the easiest terrain for women. And I can see why, because women love order, women love, if it was a lot more orderly, if the electoral system was more predictable, if political parties are going to hold good nominations, maybe then more women and better candidates would come out. But now the field is what we have. And this is the field that you have to play. And this is the game that you have to play. So I think it's just to strengthen women to play the game in the manner, one day the field will be good. But let's not wait for the day the field is good, because that will take us too long. Let us come into this field. Let's try and play the game as we can. And many women try to play that way and try to play by the rules. We've seen a lot of good women now in the leadership of the committee. So that should inspire a little bit more support for women's leadership. New language of politics has been introduced by the BBI, a language that I'm personally very happy about, the language of shall consider. For governor and deputy governor. And the reason we did that was because the resistance to get that clause in was so strong. If we did not take it to shall consider, it was not going to see the light of day. So now, any governor candidate who wants to be considered seriously must consider running with the opposite gender. And I'm beginning to think that that should also be at national level, so that any presidential candidate who wants to be taken seriously in this country shall consider running with the opposite gender. And that should begin to even out the terrain a little bit better than what it has been. But eventually, you have to just come out. Women must come out in numbers. It is true that there are statistics that show far fewer women candidates come out. In the last election, only 131 constituencies had women candidates. I think only 7 counties had gubernatorial candidates who were women. So we must have in all the 47 counties gubernatorial candidates who are women, in all the 290 constituencies candidates who are women. So there is a big role for people coming out into the electoral space, and good people. And by the way, good people doesn't mean good women. It is actually good men and women must come out to the space to lead our country.
Did I hear you say, Mheshimiwa, that you support the BBI process?
Yes. Me, I am a BBI supporter.
Why exactly?
For the 2/3 gender rule. It fully complies with the 2/3 gender rule and gives us a Senate that is 50-50. An elected Senate where every county elects a man and a woman. So you have a Senate of equality of counties and equality of genders. And then you have the National Assembly with the 2/3 list for all of the parties, but also with the top-up should the population not elect women. So really full compliance with the 2/3 gender rule. Both ways. So that's why I'm really a big supporter of the BBI. But also a couple of other things around resources, because again, you come to politics and you come to leadership to determine how resources are going to be spent. And I will just call the conversation on mental health. A big part of the mental health questions is resources. A big part of our health questions in this country is resources. So if you have more resources for those things, then better way of meeting our development goals.
Right, but in the absence of the BBI,
Sure.
we are reliant on political will.
Yes.
And of course, that's been lacking. As a commission, what have you done to try and build that political will, to build those spaces? What support are you giving to women so that they can run, they can, more can come out? We can have fewer nominations at the MCA level because that's been a big concern. We need more women elected as MPs. So what has the commission done, and what kind of field are you playing in with the government?
At the commission level, our position is the law as it is. It's Constitution of Kenya 2010 and enforcement of court judgments. That's what we're going to stand on very heavily. We're also looking at regulations around protection of persons with disability. That's worrying us a lot. 17 counties have no person with disability in representation. The youth positions as well. So we're going to go heavy on protection of the seats as they exist in the Constitution of Kenya 2010, and we're going to go heavy on political parties then complying with what the law says. It's a bit harder for us because we don't have a mandate around promotion of, we cannot, for example, support candidates. And I'm hoping that some of the civil society organizations can actually go that, the UN Women. At the time when I ran, Anne Jogu with Crew ran a really good program of supporting women candidates. Very, very good. We had a lot of lessons. Martha Karua, JB Kilimo, because again, there's mentorship, there is just learning the ropes. So that cannot be the commission's work, but we can support and we can coordinate when that is happening. But we will dedicate ourselves to protection. Because even these seats are also sometimes zinaibiwa hapa Kenya, zinaibiwa viti kabisa. Hata hiyo list unasikia sheria inasema 2/3, then the list is not 2/3. So if we just could put energy there and could put energy in making sure that any presidential candidate who's going to vie and who's going to be a presidential candidate must ensure that their party is then compliant, and then so free and fair nominations, better ways of picking candidates for the parties. But in the end, it really, for us, won't matter how the list is obtained. As long as the list is 290, it is 2/3 compliant. And push the IEBC to not take a list that is not 2/3 compliant.
There's something that you've said, which I didn't quite understand, that the commission does not have a mandate to promote. Explain that. Maybe just start by explaining what's the mandate then of this commission when it comes to issues of gender and all other equalities.
No, we can do that, because what happens is the promotion, like what she was asking about, can we train women who want to vie? Yeah. Can we, help them prepare their manifestos, campaign strategies, communication strategies? That the commission may not be able to do. Partly because we are a small commission. Like now we are a commission of 3 members and very, very poorly funded. So we can't quite, if you go all wide, then you won't be as effective. So we will choose to go narrow so that we are effective on then where the candidates will not reach. And that is largely where the legal space is and where pushing compliance with the parties and pushing compliance with IEBC is concerned. But with other partners, then we can come out and do the promotional role and do the encouragement role and do the numbers, because again, this has got to be numbers. We feel that would have to be either the Common Women Agenda, the Women's League. I'm really, really happy with what the ODM Women's League is doing. Jubilee, shida zinakuwa mingi kiasi, but hoping that the Women's League there also starts to rise up. We saw a bit of it in Kiamba, which is actually part of why I put a bit of my own finger in Kiamba, was the women's political participation. So the women's leagues in the parties need to go big. Musalia Mudavadi, as a presidential candidate, is already on record saying that his own party is going to be strategy is women and that he sees the future of women. So that the commission cannot do. And if the commission goes there, then we will lack somebody to then protect the space that is already given by the Constitution of Kenya 2010. So we want to dedicate ourselves to protecting the space given by the Constitution of Kenya 2010.
But you see now, protecting is only coming to work after the fact. It's hoping that the court, for example, makes a pronouncement, is looking at the law and hoping that once you keep pushing, then there'll be political goodwill to implement. But in terms of promotion, I still feel sort of disappointed that the commission would not be able to even have worked with UN Women and the other organizations and bringing together civil society and saying, go out there. All we are doing is bringing you to a round table and saying, let's mainstream this conversation. Let's start empowering women. Because we are talking about 4 years since the last election, going into next year's election, and we do not have a proper grassroots vibe on more women candidates, on even getting citizens to see more women participating and presenting themselves as possible candidates for next year's election.
No, you're right in that respect, in the sense that we have to work with other partners. And maybe I'm the one who's not using the right English word. Maybe I need help with English words here. But then what...
You're putting the pronoun before the verb.
I know, and the verb after the pronoun.
The noun now comes wrong.
Because maybe the word is not promotion. I think that you are right in the sense that there is a lot of work to do to prepare women to come out in numbers for the next election. And somebody must take up that role. Even if not the commission alone, the commission must then talk to other partners to take up that role. And indeed we are doing, because we are working with the State Department on gender, led by the CS, Kobia. And there is also a new program with the Ministry of Interior, just preparing for the next electoral cycle. And there is also the UN Women and other partners. And we will broaden our viewpoints in terms of what more we need to do. It's just that for me as a lawyer, I really, and having been in our politics, I know that you really just must get your bullseye. If you don't get your bullseye, you will not be effective in this election. And even this promotion or the role that we have taken starts now. We have already filed an advisory with the IEBC that the IEBC must be 2/3 compliant itself, so that it can then enforce, 2/3 with everyone. And these things appear like they're in the law, but the way I told you, the way our country runs, people can even assume ati wamama wawili tuko karibu ati we are making, what do you call, they call it progressive, we are progressive. No. For IBC, we have put our advisory on record. It is not progressive. The IBC commissioners now under selection must be 3 women and 1 man, so that then the IBC is fully 2/3 compliant. We are very happy about the Supreme Court, because it's been a big problem for us for the Supreme Court not to be 2/3 compliant. There's a shyness that comes, and the Speaker also doesn't fear reminding the Supreme Court all the time that why don't you first be 2/3 compliant before you ask anybody else. Now the Supreme Court is 2/3 compliant, thanks to Chief Justice Martha Koome. So now the Supreme Court can also hold the steering wheel in as far as pushing the 2/3 compliance. Then the IBC. So these things start early, and for our commission, they start as early as with the IBC, with the IBC rollout of programs, with the IBC preparations, the voter registration. We might go into a round of mass voter registration, making sure that that voter registration is then looking at special interest groups, and not just the women now for the voter register, also the persons with disability, the young people, the elderly, the minorities and marginalized, making sure that all of those principles of equality are enforced within the electoral cycle. So both ways, protection and promotion.
What you're doing is commendable, but if I leave aside the role of the commission and the 2/3 gender rule, let me ask this question. If you look at the electoral process in this country and you look at our voters, there are many parts of this country where the voter has determined that they're willing to elect a woman because they believe that is the person who can best lead them. Now, do you really think that if you're looking at the country as a whole, that the electoral grouping of this particular country are prepared to comply with that 2/3 gender rule?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've seen, so let me speak to my experience as a parliamentarian.
Yes.
We now know which regions are a problem with gender issues. And the Western region particularly came up highly on the list, as the last woman Western elected was Dr. Julia Ojiambo, I think in the 70s. So that's a really bad record. Nyanza, not a problem. Central, by and large, a good picture. Maasai community now with quite a number of women elected. Peris Tobiko was the first, but then followed by Sarah Korere and now Naisula Lesuda and Mama Leshomo. So we earmarked Western and then Northeastern as well. Luckily, in the last election, Northeastern elected Ijara Member of Parliament, Sophia Abdinur. And we are hoping that Sophia is from Garissa, so we are hoping that Wajir and Mandera also start to get that wind. So it is true that some regions are yet to get onto the bandwagon of electing women, and that it is true that culture is still playing a role around us, because you find that those communities that are not electing women are also in FGM, are also having early girl marriage, are also not taking girls to school. So it's a whole, women are not economically empowered in those regions. So we've got a bit of work. For me, Western in particular, because when we lost the 2/3 the first time, it was Western that did us in. We had 195 votes. If we had the Western bloc, we would have gotten it. The Rift Valley has had a good terrain with elected women leaders from Salikos Gay to JB Kilimo. So there's a bit of work to be done. That is why we had wanted an arrangement that then takes the 2/3 to the county level, that every county gives us candidates that are 2/3 compliant, so that it is not some regions that are electing women and other regions are not electing women. But the law is not there yet. We had tried it in our parliament. It didn't quite go through. Even this 2/3 list is now for the whole country. So there is another fear that the political parties can put women in regions where they are not dominant. But electoral cycles are such that the list is public. So people can see if ODM really wants women to be elected or not. If Jubilee wants women to be elected or not. If UDA wants women to be elected or not. You can see that from the list. If Wiper wants women to be elected or not. And the 2/3 is not just when you're fronting candidates the whole country. Even if, say, like Wiper, you are fronting candidates in 3 counties, the lower eastern counties, it means that you are 2/3 compliant of the region that you choose to front candidates. So this conversation is far from complete. We are hoping that the laws that come on, the Political Parties Act in particular and the Elections Act, if there are any amendments that are going to go through before the election, then they can tighten some of those provisions. But you're right, these things are not about the law. It is also how much power do the women, because like Peris Tobiko did not wait for the law to change. She just went out there. She was cast by the Maasai elders, but she still ran. So even the women in Western, you have to just get out there and challenge the dominant theories and just put yourself and give people a good agenda. Because another thing that is failing as women, as candidates, is to give people the same thing men are giving. Because if men are corrupt, if men are tribal, if men are doing all the wrong things, and you're a woman candidate, you come in to be tribal, to be corrupt. I mean, what's the difference? People say, then we might as well just choose the men. So we must come in as women and give a cleaner image about leadership. Show the difference. We are not there. That difference haijatokea. So that there's no difference between a man and a woman as far as our politics now is concerned.
Let's actually get deeper into what could be happening in all these communities. Why is it like the city is asking, why is it that the electorate seems not yet ready to embrace this whole conversation about gender and equality. Let's take a break, though, at 27 minutes after 8. Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room is Eric Latif, CT Muga, Wajiro Gekonyo, and Priscilla Nyokabi, a commissioner with the Gender and Equality Commission. Are we likely to have more women on the ballot in 2022? What needs to happen for us to see that? So then we can see more women being elected to positions of MCA, Senate, woman rep. Well, there'll be 47 women rep anyway. And governor, president, member of the National Assembly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM.
It's getting hot in here. Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they're getting per year, how much inconvenience they're causing. As much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a Fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu wacha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial star 550 star 2 hash to read the Nairobian e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line and stay up to date.
Okay, so it's warming up in Nairobi. It's currently 15 degrees, but we're going to have a mostly cloudy day at 24. How's it looking like in Mombasa? Light rains at 29. Malindi, rain showers at 28. Mostly sunny day in Kampala. No, let's start with Kisumu. Currently at 19, but the temperature is going to rise to 30. Nyeri, cloudy day at 21. Nakuru, sunny day at 25. Mostly cloudy in Eldoret at 23. And Kakamega, sunny day at 28. Dar es Salaam, mostly cloudy day at 29. Lagos, Nigeria, mostly clear day at 30. And Kinshasa is mostly cloudy day at 31. It's warming up in Johannesburg, South Africa. It's now 0 degrees. It has come from -3. It'll warm up to 10 later on in the day. Beijing in China is quite warm at 28, sunny day. Paris, France, sunny at 29. It's hazy in London. Temperatures are going to rise to 28. And New York, clear skies at 27. Nyayo Stadium to Lusaka Road, where it's crazy. And that gets into the entire Uhuru Highway all the way up to Museum Hill Interchange, especially Museum Hill Interchange coming into University Roundabout. It's bad all the way from Wangari Maathai Road, joining the interchange, coming into the road. And then Kiambu Road, joining Thika Superhighway at Muthaiga. It's also busy. Coming into Pangani. Jogoo Road is easing off at City Stadium Roundabout, but it's very busy into Landis Road. Getting out of Westlands towards ABC Place is busy because of the road construction. If you're on Langata Road and you're seeking to come to town, especially if you want to go onto Lusaka Road, you're stuck because there's traffic all the way on Langata Road up to the Mbagathi interchange. After that, it clears up. And then Enterprise Road is not so bad. Roads in industrial area, Lunga has cleared. It was busy earlier, but now it's looking much better. Anything that you think we ought to let people know, SpiceFM KE on Twitter or send us an SMS 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
So it's now 28 minutes to 9. The conversation continues with Priscilla Nyakabi, Commissioner with the Gender and Equality Commission. Were we ready in 2010 when we passed this constitution and said that we want to have gender equity in elective seats?
I like that question. And what was ringing through my mind and what I sometimes think is affirmative action, very much like public participation processes, are easily hijacked and become elite. And this gender discussion could have become an elite project because power is centralized. As women are fighting to wrest political power, again, it has been centralized. So it's elite women. And maybe this is perceived as an elite project, and hence the lack of ownership from the ground. Could that be one of the challenges in trying to fight to open this space?
I don't understand. How exactly, explain this again, how exactly does it become an elite?
It becomes elite when the primary beneficiaries are elite. When you look at the distribution, when you look at the priorities, when you look at the issues being fronted, does Mama Mboga feel this movement? Do women at the grassroots feel that the push for gender equity is speaking their issues? Have we?
Like, do they feel represented, for example, when they see Priscilla Nyakabi in Parliament?
Right. Or do they see an elite woman? Because if you're an elite woman and there's an elite man next to you, like you said, what's the difference?
But the vast majority of the voter do not fall into the category of anyone you would call elite. And since they're the ones who determine who gets elected, surely, if we were to give Mheshimiwa as an example, they know who she is. So if they're electing her, they know exactly whom they're electing. In fact, it has been argued that the biggest impediments to women being elected have been women themselves, because they prefer to elect the men rather than elect the women.
Which is why
exactly
what
Wanjiru
is asking. Exactly. So when, for example, we came out of Beijing and you saw Nyiva Mwendwa, did the women in the grassroots feel, yes, she's come back with the women from Beijing, China, and we are going to push this women conversation? Or did they feel, yeah, Nyiva Mwendwa, well, yeah, she came, now she's joined the cabinet. Okay, yeah, she got what she wanted.
And is she speaking for the issues where it really pinches?
That's true. Well, let me say, we've reflected on that, and you have to reflect on it. I mean, I even take it as a joke when the men in parliament say, Mama Mboga, go up here. Are you Baba Mboga? You know, come on. You know, you're a lawyer. Come on. So, like Kaluma, why don't you come in a border? Why don't you also allow me to argue with the border man? Even me, I would love to argue with the border people, you know, such. So this power space is a space for the elite. There's nothing you can do about that, because this is a leadership space. And what the Constitution wants is that leadership space must be men and women. You know, now we can worry about whether they are elite or not elite or Mama Mboga. But in the first place, can we just have men and women in leadership? So we were ready for that in 2010, because the 2010 constitution was about equality, and we were even struggling with equality of communities. Remember, our country is also a tribal country. So if and which was also the debate we have taken to BBI. If we're going to attain equality and inclusion of communities, we then need to attain equality and inclusion of other groups in the society, women included. And so as we build all these bridges, we are also building the gender bridge. So if we are ready for equality of communities, equality of counties, we are ready then for equality of genders. And this equality of genders is something that if we're going to get a male governor, it is the same way we can get a female governor. So for us, at basic principle level, the Constitution of Kenya 2010 has done a really good job in terms of settling that. And remember, 2/3 is a negotiated floor. It was negotiated by those who are negotiating the Constitution. The best is 50-50, but because we were not at 50-50, the consensus then was, let's start with 2/3. So one day when we achieve 2/3, then we will reach out for the 50-50. So I think to that extent, the community is ready. Because the community has taken both men and women to school. The community has men and women in other spaces of leadership. If you look at business, if you look at professional bodies now, for example, LSK, doctors. So we are ready for this conversation of men and women being equal, and men and women, therefore, being in leadership. The only thing is that the Africanization that you see, this attempt at Mama Mboga, is our attempt at holding on to cultural practices that lead to women being put on the second place. And it's sad for us because that's why people are holding on to FGM. It's not that FGM has any medical value or any value to the society. It's just that FGM makes women second-class citizens. And Kenya has a problem with that. When we want to be first world, we are first world with our cars, we are first world with our phones, we are first world with our financial systems. But on women, we are very with our grandfathers. And we in the women rights movement cannot accept that argument. If you want us to discuss how our grandfathers had 5 wives, you also come with skins. But you can't come with a German suit to tell us that these are now African concepts. There are no African concepts, yes. In terms of equality of men and women, those debates are done. And
are they?
Those debates are in the Constitution. No, they are done in the sense that they are in the Constitution. So now, if we're going to comply with the Constitution on devolution, we are complying with the Constitution on speakership, we are complying with the Constitution on the presidential system, let us comply with the Constitution also on the 2/3 gender rule.
Kabi, let me pick on something you've said, that leadership is elite. And I'll try and make this argument and hope it comes out. We are resting or struggling in the devolution sphere to drive the idea of bottom-up development. To also drive the idea of integrated development. Just before this, we were discussing the need to incorporate mental health and have a 360 integrated approach. I put it to you that perhaps that is what we need to, the next leg to sell gender is, one, to integrate it with other things, to recognize that you won't have gender inclusion until you have proper bottom-up participatory engagement, because as long as you're saying leadership is elite, political power is elite, then you are alienating the majority. And the gender argument then lacks the principle of inclusion that is needed to cut across. So, like I said, I'm getting maybe not making it as clearly as possible, but I do think the gender debate needs to come in and say, for gender inclusion, devolution needs to work well. You need proper bottom-up inclusion in, you've got committees there, from neighborhood committees, from the associations that are involved. So possibly this is why I feel that the gender argument has become elite, has become a power play, and has missed out actually on this big opportunity of let's go for inclusion. Gender, as well as political decision making, needs to be inclusive. Also, people live what they see, and if people see exclusion and see elitism and see that political power is for a few, then they will, at election time, mirror that behavior. So possibly there is a need to consider, how do we bring people on board? Because power is exercised in very many spheres, not just political elected. Yeah.
No, I think that is true, really. The vision of 2/3 was not just 2/3 for National Assembly and Senate. It was actually 2/3 at the PTA level, for those of us like me who comes from Nyeri with coffee and tea. It is 2/3 at the coffee factory. It's 2/3, and even those are male spaces as we speak now. It is 2/3 at the tea factory. It is 2/3 at the church. It is 2/3 everywhere. So that needs to happen. The only thing is that the bodies that are now charged with ensuring it happens everywhere else are themselves not compliant. That is why you see this concentration on making sure that the National Assembly and Senate are 2/3 compliant, so that then they can make the rest of the society 2/3. Because when you have a National Assembly and Senate that is not 2/3 compliant, even the cabinet will not be. Because remember now, cabinet, the nominations, the approvals are through the National Assembly and Senate. It then follows. IEBC will not be 2/3. Commissions will not be. Task forces will not be 2/3 compliant. So it is just that it has to start somewhere so that it can then cascade downwards.
As opposed to a bottom-up.
No, it can be
concurrently.
By the way, and it was even checked. You can do that.
Bottom-up is like dealing with the culture.
We've got a
top-up is dealing with
no,
the
no.
law.
We have that. We have that even in law. The only thing is that when it was checked, it would take us 100 years to do bottom-up. It would take us 100 years for the society to one day be gender. So now, what actually we do with the law ourselves is you don't wait for 100 years. You change the constitution, and then the constitution change the society. You could do it the way you're saying. You could wait for the society to change.
Why 100 years? I don't agree.
Let me tell you, it is on record. UN Women has a whole record of how long it would take us to be gender equal without intervention of law. With intervention of law.
Not without.
You are without intervention of law, actually. One day, because like you look at societies, for example.
Right.
I mean, Mekatilili was there. Wango wa Makeri was there.
What
so
about
society,
concurrently?
Society was going to one day accept the leadership of women.
What
It's
about
just that journey
concurrently?
would have taken 100 years. So now, because we don't want to take 100 years, we are using the law to move the society faster.
Yeah, but the point we've been making here, and we've spoken about this, even the program before, that we are a country with low rule of law, very low compliance. We need the law. We need the legal safeguards.
That's debatable.
We need the legal safeguards. We were talking about corruption. I think we were told, 22 anti-corruption laws, numerous institutions, yet corruption, the problem is becoming
Can
bigger.
you imagine what would happen if we didn't have those 22 laws?
Right, so we're not saying to the exclusion of the laws, but we're saying without the bottom-up approach, then these laws won't enforce themselves.
No, the concurrent approach, that I would agree with concurrent approach.
So come up
but even, even with all our weaknesses of rule of law, we do respect the Constitution. Let nobody cheat you. This president is not ruling without the Constitution. This National Assembly is not working without the Constitution. We might differ on interpretation, but we are following the Constitution as written, as black and white. And I have, because I come from the civil society as well with Wanjiro for many, many years, we actually do think that the law is not followed. That is not true. Our government, this government of Kenya, with all the weaknesses that we think it has, it actually follows the law. Yes, because there's no evidence.
There's evidence through court rulings and contempt of
but let me even say this.
Rulings.
Even those court rulings are in thousands. So you can only pick a handful that have not been obeyed. Thousands of court rulings are obeyed day by day. Thousands of court rulings are obeyed day by day.
But the fact that there are that many and some are...
A few are not obeyed for political reasons, I guess. But few. There are few, handful. So now, but let me say this. Of all the laws that we respect, the Constitution is the most respected law in our country. You try and come to our governance systems without a constitutional backing, then you will know that the Constitution is respected.
Yes, you will find yourself in court.
And a lot of problems, including even entry into that space. You are a constitutional body. It's even like this gender. It's true the political will is not very strong, but it is a constitutional principle. If it was not a constitutional principle, we wouldn't even be here talking about this. It would be a non-issue. But now that it is a constitutional principle, half of the people are persuaded that let's just follow it. Since it's in the Constitution, let's do what we can to make it a reality.
We can't argue. Indeed, we have the laws. We can argue about the extent to which our ruling class is compliant and working within the legal framework. That one we can argue.
This commission that you belong to, Mheshimiwa, Gender and
Equality Commission, yes.
Does the equality just refer to women, or does it refer to the entire populace?
No. Actually, we have 6 special interest groups.
Yes.
Non-discrimination is for the entire population,
Yes.
that the entire population should be protected from discrimination. And there is a very robust Bill of Rights. So that Bill of Rights is applicable to all the Kenyans, including right to dignity and many other rights that are in there. The only thing is that for women, even the 2/3 rights are then in the Bill of Rights as well. So that is non-discrimination for everyone. But then we have 3 commissions that are sister commissions within the Bill of Rights, created by the Bill of Rights to protect that Bill of Rights chapter. So one is the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. So the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights deals with the rights of everybody. And there are also many rights around assembly, the rights, police brutality, freedom from violence, and all of that. Then we have the National Gender and Equality Commission. And our commission's main role is protection of special interest groups. The women, the youth, the persons with disability, the children, the elderly, and the minorities and marginalized. Those are the groups that we particularly protect. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights protects all of us. Even our commission must ensure that there is no discrimination on anybody. But in particular, we must make sure that the special interest groups who are left behind are now being brought onto the mainstream with the rest of the society.
Why I ask is because the conversation has always focused on the gender rule.
It is because the women are now the ones left behind by the men.
Well,
One day when the men are left behind, we will defend them.
I would argue differently, and I would say those with disabilities are the ones who are really left behind. They are the ones who are considered the least. Because even when it comes to our political processes, in the absence of the affirmative action that we have, people with disabilities would not be considered at all. They would not have a voice. They would have no say whatsoever. So even as we talk about the voices of the 2/3 gender rule, good, but the voice that speaks for people with disabilities must be louder, infinitely louder than it is right now within this commission that you belong to.
No. That's a challenge we receive often. Well, unfortunately for me, I'm a women rights activist, so I went to the commission
There
because
are
I'm a
women
women
with
rights.
disabilities
So
as
yes,
well.
and we do defend, and young women as well.
Yes.
So we defend those ones. But now on the same footing, you're right that the persons with disability should also equally have a strong voice. And it like our commission sometimes, what are you doing about the boy child? Of course, we must do some work around the boy child, and we must make sure that the girl child and the boy child are equal as far as the law and as far as services are concerned. But I find it a bit amusing myself on a personal level that it is the men asking what the women are doing about the boy child. As we are doing with the girl child, why don't you do with the boy child as we are doing with the girl child? Must the ones who are doing the girl child also be the ones that stop doing girl child and now come and do, like even the way you are sympathetic with the person with disability? Must it be the women? Must it be the women fighting for the women's
your
space?
commission that
also to come and.
Mheshimiwa, it's your commission.
Yes,
because
but our commission has men and women.
The discrimination that this society of ours has against people with disabilities is infinitely greater than that which they have against women. So if you're talking about a disadvantaged group, the people with disabilities truly are disadvantaged.
The unseen.
Yes, because by and large, people with disabilities, whether it's mental disabilities, physical, they are people who societally we would rather even not see. So talking about them is even a difficult thing. So the focus on them, it is not possible to understate it.
Yeah, I would like to come back to the issue of culture, not traditional culture, but really our practices and our perceptions. How successful are we going to be if we just take the legal approach? Because at the end of the day, when I listen to, I have young adult daughters, and I listen to their conversations and the conversations they have with men when I watch social media and watch the kind of conversation going on, I'm like, have we really made progress? You've got young men with very, very regressive attitudes towards women. And so we are missing something. We are very empowered. Girls are educated. But the culture remains, you've got other forms of gender discrimination.
Allow me to be gender insensitive here.
So I was just going to say, if we don't deal with culture, we're going to have the laws, but then you have young men coming up with even more parochial and chauvinistic attitudes than the older generation.
Yes.
By the same token, I think the boy-child conversation is critical, because this boy-child is the one who then comes up with the very regressive attitudes.
My gender insensitivity, this is what I want to say, yeah? Let's not bring in the boy child, girl child into the discussion. Let's talk about parenting, though this is not what we talk about in this show, and the roles that parents have in the lives of their children. And the influence that the parents have on their children. In our society, we may not like it, but women have a far greater influence on the children, both girls and boys, than the men do. Yes, simply because of the societal configuration of the roles that they have. And if you look at the influence that, for instance, mothers have on their sons, the disparity between roles starts at that point where girls are brought up in a specific way and they're empowered from a very early stage. Boys, daddy, that it's inculcated at a very early age. Now to balance it, and usually it's because the role that men are supposed to play, they have summarized it and they have concluded that it boils down to absence. So they don't participate. The only participation is they're alive and they're present from time to time.
And must be fed and must be looked
Yes.
after.
So that issue, if we're addressing it, let's start addressing it from where it should be addressed. Though this particular show doesn't go around discussing and addressing those issues. But I thought I would mention it. The role of that is adults in the room.
But there's a good thing. There's a good thing with all of this in the sense of culture and behavior change.
The role of mothers in influencing young people is a subject of discussion that must be looked at realistically and without emotions.
And can I correct
And the abandonment of roles that of men must also be discussed as we're having this discussion.
In fact, can I add on to that?
Of course you must add, my dear.
Yes, I must add.
Yes, you must.
The day can't be complete without my adding on. And I, in agreement with you, because the man, whether absent or present...
You agree with me?
Yeah, imagine.
Okay, go
Lakini
on.
tuendelee. whether absent or present influences that child. So the notion that it's only the mother is erroneous, because the man, whether absent or present, actually for young ladies is one of the strongest influences on her perception and relationship with men, as she moves out into life. So just before you speak, Priscilla, I'll go back to a conversation we had with Judy Thiongori a while back, where she was saying she'd done some work, I think it was in either Thailand or in South Korea, in one of those Far East Asian countries. And she was saying they had a very powerful family education program. And they did their civic education at the family level, local community. And they're teaching civic responsibility, their gender roles at that level. I put it to you that because government has totally abdicated that space and only considers that citizens should be educated so that they can vote, instead of talking about civic values and rights, social justice, gender equality, because of that, the law is coming and hitting up against this very hard and fast culture, attitudes and, really deeply set practices that the law can only help a little bit, but can't really change.
How do you respond to that as we conclude this conversation?
Sure. It was a very live discussion in BBI. Unfortunately, what we saw of BBI was the constitutional amendment bill, and not everything else that was part of a discussion. There was a huge discussion on national ethos. And it is true, laws are not supposed to be just planted in any soil. Laws are supposed to be planted in a soil that has been watered and a soil that has been dug and that sort of thing. So we have a very wrong way of addressing our changes in society. So that is something that needs to be done. Actually, the view then was that the National Cohesion and Integration Commission would take up national ethos, the sort of things that you're talking about, parenting. Like now, Kababa, when Kababa now becomes a governor, now you already brought up a Kababa. We are looking at a very bad future. Or Kababa is now president, We're not going to be in trouble. Kababa is now married, Yes. So there is a big conversation for this country around parenting and where we have lost it. And even the roles, like some of the mothers who bring up both boys and girls who are equal. It is a mother saying, you clean the vyombo today, na kesho ni wewe. Unaosha nyumba leo, na kesho wewe unaosha nyumba. Like my mother was that type of mother. As we didn't know roles until we went to Nyeri. Nyeri is where we found boys don't go to the kitchen. Until again she revolutionized and said, no. For a long time we used to take our brothers' plates. Wanakula wanaacha sahani. Until one day I said, what the hell? Yes. Peleka sahani yako jikoni. Because in fact, our revolution was hiyo jikoni haijafungwa na kufuli na Kikuyu seti kanyire. Waradhani. Tire kanyire. What is this? So that there is that conversation. But then as that conversation is going on, there is also a conversation around we have to prepare for the next election in the system in which we find ourselves in. So that system, there is no other way. The law must play.
The law must apply.
The law must do its role. And it's true, the law is not the only system. Culture. Actually, in BBI, we had 4 committees. One for the constitutional change, one for law, another one for policy, and one for administrative. We came very short of creating a committee for behavior change. The country actually needs a commission for behavior change.
You should have if you actually had used the report of the BBI task force. Anyway, if you'd like to get highlights of this conversation that happens every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on SpiceFM, you can get them on our SpiceFM handles, SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, or you can also get them now on your SMS 22840. Just text the word the letters TSR to 22840. You'll get highlights of what happens in the conversation right here. We want to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. You've been with us since the top of the hour, but the conversation continues into the next hour on SpiceFM 94.4 Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, 96.7, Eldoret, Nyeri 90.9, and Malindi 97.7. Good morning.
SpiceFM, Nakuru. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
So the barb I was throwing at you, Priscilla, as we were taking that break, is the first report by the task force on BBI highlighted the issue of values.
That's true, in a big way.
Yeah. So when now we go into coming up with all these BBI conversation, and we are not discussing and addressing values, I think a big opportunity was being missed there.
Yeah, that got lost. But it is, Constitution is a power document. So once you go into power, everything else pales. So, and we've gotten into power. And BBI is also the succession document. The country is very, very unstable for succession. So every attempt had to be made to stabilize us for the succession.
Well, I think that's where
that's where now some things...
The succession kind of derailed the larger conversation, because the succession needs to be dealt with in a political setting, and then the other fundamental problems need to be addressed. So,
because what has happened is that this top of two is a big problem. For a community so divided, it's not even clear how long we're going to survive this. It's too narrow. It's too narrow.
Yeah, but from where
and not just this community, all divided communities. Let me tell you, our best days are parliamentary system days. Yeah, this presidential system. It was a big miscalculation in Bomas. And so you can see it is giving.
But we've always had a presidential system.
But with a broader
but we
base.
Fought it.
We had a broader base. We had a broader base. Now the base is very narrow.
We did, but we were also a different society then. The society we have now, our understanding, the global economy that we have, everything about it is different. And we understood this. Why did people fight so hard to bring about a new constitution? Because they understood the need for change had been there.
Yeah.
But now that it's upon us, as Mheshimiwa correctly put it, we made that fundamental error in Bomas.
Yeah, it was not even in Bomas, in Naivasha. It was the
Naivasha, yes.
Again.
It was Naivasha.
Because Bomas had the broader base.
Yes.
It is in Naivasha where they went and narrowed it. And then now that narrow served very it was a very temporary serving. And it is already not.
It has cost us.
Like this succession, this one now. I don't
it's a big one.
It is. We wouldn't survive it.
Well, I had my issues with the committee.
So that base must broaden a bit.
The committee of experts on constitution review, I had my issues with them because everything else they told us what to do. When it came to system of government, they were not clear on what needed to be done.
That was true.
So they left the door open for Naivasha to happen. It's whole issue anyway.
I know Naivasha was even deception. The only reason
it was a game.
This community went for presidential system is because it feared the other community would not support presidential system. Because Baba was always for parliamentary. And our side was always for presidential. Then our people went to Bomas and now inverted to trick Baba. I say, if he now wants presidential, let's go presidential.
Let's go presidential.
Yeah.
Time for us to take a break and listen to what's happening in the news, the latest news updates, and also look at what's happening on the roads. Priscilla Nyokabi will stay with us to the next hour, and we want to hear from you as well. 0719 012 600. More women in the ballot next year. Good morning, 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Simeon Moket, Timothy Tipila Olinaiko, and ZP Musimi are today expected to appear before the REBC interview panel seeking to fill the 4 vacant positions of commissioners at the commission. Yesterday, 3 candidates, retired Colonel Said Hamis Said, Dr. Salim Demo, and Celestine Anambi Kiluku, were interviewed. Asked whether REBC could justify a bad election, Said Hamis said the REBC can prepare early to prevent such instances.
Do you think there are circumstances that would justify a bad election on the part of the commission?
I don't think there's any justification in that.
A day before the election and on election day, there is generalized violence that makes it difficult for people to vote.
IBC has started its preparation in this phase for election. We have history of elections. IBC is supposed to analyze the trend of these elections.
The president exercised restraint during the Kiambaa by-election and instead focused his energy on things that will change the lives of the Mwananchi. Jubilee Secretary General Raphael Tuju said that unlike the deputy president, who has been crisscrossing touring the country campaigning, President Uhuru Kenyatta has directed his attention where it's needed most.
You know, in this country, we only have 2% vaccination against COVID, and that's unfortunately one of the highest in Africa. I'd rather have the president dealing with that, dealing with our multilateral development partners, the World Bank, the IMF, the OECD countries. I'd rather have him focusing on that. I'd rather have him focusing on the Ajira initiative, which has created close to 1 million jobs in the last 1 year. That, for me, is more important than him going to campaign in Kiambaa, and he's not on the ballot next year.
Kenya will continue to protect its territory and will not allow foreign elements to bring chaos in the country, says President Uhuru Kenyatta. Speaking after visiting the Special Operations Training Camp in Boni Forest, Lamu County, President Kenyatta commended the officers for joint training aimed at improving security standards in the country.
Ni kitu muhimu kwa vikosi mbalimbali kuwa zina uwezo kwanza ya kujuana, lakini la pili kushirikiana katika kazi ambazo wanatekeleza. Lakini ningependa pia niseme, tukiwa taifa ambalo lapenda amani, sisi pia sio taifa ambaye itakubali kutishwa ama tukubali hata inchi moja ya taifa letu la Kenya iingie kwa mikono ya watu wengine.
With increased political activities around the country, the just concluded by-elections in Kiambaa and Muguga, entertainment events, and the just concluded World Rally Championship in Naivasha, Kemri scientists warned that there is the likelihood of increased COVID-19 infections. These as Kenya is being warned that it's not out of the woods yet, especially given the fact that only 2.2% adult population has been vaccinated. Nairobi yesterday recorded 334 cases, the highest number in the sample size, Kilifi 84, Nakuru 21, and Kiambu 20. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
All right, so the roads are looking the same way they were looking about half an hour ago. Langata Road, that traffic heading towards Mbagathi is bad. I think Kenha, surely you should do something about this. Really, that traffic management. Because Mbagathi Way is clear both ways, going out or coming towards Timor. But Langata Road heading towards that particular junction is horrible. Nyayo Stadium throughout the entire stretch of Uhuru Highway into Haile Selassie Avenue is bad. Museum Hill interchange into University Way roundabout is bad. But Kiambu Road has cleared. Now the only problem is at the interchange with Muthaiga Road coming into Pangani. Landis Road is bad as usual. That one I don't need to tell you much about it. And then Mombasa Road, the rest of it is okay up to General Motors, which has some slight traffic delay, but it moves thereafter. Anything that you think we ought to know about, if there's any cause of traffic this morning, let us know. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
It's 5 minutes after 9. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. With you in the studio is Wajiro Gekonyo, C.T. Muga, Eric Latif, and Priscilla Nyokabi, Commissioner with the Gender and Equality Commission, and somebody who came from the civil society, got into politics, was elected in politics, and now has been running a constitutional commission. It's not constitutional.
Commission.
It's a big one that's constitutional. Then this one of you, as you guys snuck it in and by deciding, let's break it up.
It's constitutional, very constitutional. Gender is an important pillar.
See, I'll remind you, the one commission in the Constitution is the Kenya National
Commission on Human Rights.
Commission on Human Rights and
the same
Equality.
Constitution allowed it to be subdivided.
And then they said that it's subdivided. And
by
then
the Constitution, not by anybody.
Then they subdivided it.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
All right.
City, today's proverb.
it is not the cook's fault when the cassava turns to be hard and tasteless.
It's not the cook's fault when the cassava turns out to be hard and tasteless.
You know,
see those things that you say about Jubilee? Apply.
Yeah, you know, I was going to say, I don't necessarily support this proverb, but it can pass. Because it can also be used as an apologetics, you know, to say, what could I do? I washed my hands.
You know the beauty of Proverbs.
What can I do?
Is that Proverbs accommodate all shapes and sizes of views. So you are absolutely right as far as you're concerned. You see, every time I talk to people who are in the civil society, I learn. And I understand certain perspectives that ordinarily I wouldn't think of in depth. But the thing that amazes me about many people in civil society is how they don't understand the fundamental and pivotal role of politics and politicians. And just how what politicians determine and what they want in this country is fundamental to almost everything that we do. So that even when we talk about solutions, if the political angle isn't taken care of, nothing is taken care of. And in my mind, the BBI, much as it looked like it was very political, it took what I'm saying into consideration and figured we need to sort out certain things here in order for whatever else we're discussing, for it to work. But my view.
It's usurping power and
my view.
Yeah, you're entitled to your view.
Usurping power from the citizen.
We're a democracy. You're entitled to air it, whether it's misinformed or whether it's partial, based on partial information. It's your view.
I'm not being agreed
Indeed,
with
you're
here.
entitled.
When you is dissenting and telling me, essentially, put it this way,
you're on your own.
Kana yo view yako.
I'm not with you at all. The BBI missed the point. It was a political agenda. We can't discuss too much because the matter's in court, I imagine. But the process. It's maybe not the issues that were being discussed, it's the process. And that's what's being litigated in court.
You've missed completely the butter that I applied to the civil society. I laid it on nice and thick.
You're giving me some butter.
I was buttering you up, for heaven's sake. Yes, but
by saying that the civil society is out of touch with reality.
Exactly. How is that butter?
Not out of touch with reality. It's just
that's what he's saying.
The political reality. Because I mean, even for me, for
you
the
came
life,
from the civil society.
Our job is not.
And I remember those blissful days. I was completely blissful, honestly, really blissful about many things.
How?
Even for example, international criminal justice systems and both the organizations that I worked for, ICJ Kenya and Kituo cha Sheria, supported the accountability for post-election violence 2007-2008. So you're very, very blissful around how you live your life and how you see the law. And you are an idealist and a romantic, a hopeless one at that. When you come to politics, you find the reality of our country. And you know, in civil society, we even treat Wanjiko as a harmless, humble victim. My good Lord, Wanjiko is just as thuggish as everybody else. No, but Wanjiko is not an angel. Even her, she chooses bad leaders when she can choose good ones. She takes money to vote people. Wanjiko is also just as bad as everybody else. So if the country has a problem, we all have a problem. So that is what I have loved about living the civil society. Unatoa miwani. You know, unaona Kenya for what it is.
But I think
this is the Kenya that we have to deal with.
The contribution of civil society is you have to aspire. No nation can operate on its least common interest. Because if you left a country to politicians alone, like you're saying, you will be fighting on basic least common interest and the least common denominator. The beauty with civil society is we aspire. And our job is to remind, and yes, it might sound idealistic that we must have, even the gender inclusion sounded idealistic when it was first mooted. It came from civil society. So civil society has a role to hold politicians to the higher standard of performance. Otherwise, we can all go to our least common, and we'll be cutting each other at the throat and bastardizing the law.
Is it impossible to change that, what you're saying, when you get into politics, the nature and structure of our politics and how it is it impossible to change it? Move it closer to the ideals that you are practicing in civil society.
What I have found is that you can still hold your ideals. I personally still hold on to mine, the ones that I came with. But then you are now in a land of interests. because politics is interests. And so you just have to find how your ideals fit with these interests. Like what we've done now with the gender, which is why we are very excited about the handshake, is to convince the handshake partners that the 2/3 gender rule is part of the handshake, that you cannot have a handshake without the women, and you cannot have, so you have to do a lot of that. Sometimes it's not easy. We got a lot of good sell with Article 43 rights, for example, health, water, education, all of those are in the BBI. So it's just how you convert your ideals into national concerns and into good politics. Because if they don't make good politics, then the real political players are not going to buy them. And there are some things that the real political players don't buy into. And also timing. Politics is also a game of timing. Maybe the idea is not good this year, like what we were saying about the BBI. Maybe, I don't know why we couldn't do it in 2018, for example. 2018 was the handshake. Now, the timing is right. It's like football. This is now the season at which we must do some of these things. So when you're in civil society, timing is not an issue. You kind of think, and time is very elastic for those of us who are not in politics. In politics, every day matters, every hour matters, every season matters. And now we are going into the season where it matters the most.
But I wish to disagree that civil society is not mindful of time just because we might not have a direct personal interest. And we aim to represent Wanjiko's interests. And yes, we don't always do it perfectly. It doesn't mean we are not mindful of time. It doesn't mean we don't do political calculations as well, because we do political assessments. But it may be, number one, in terms of resourcing, you're talking about a very thinly spread, and civil society is very diverse. The governance civil society are very, very few, trying to hold to account a government that's running a 3.6 trillion budget. So really, you're talking about a little ant trying to hold this monstrosity to account. So, I don't agree that we are head in the cloud, ivory tires.
Is not an ant, Wanjiro.
Yeah, right. I'm just saying, figuratively speaking,
yes,
it's an army. We are David and Goliath.
No,
might be the better representation. But the point is to kind of say that we are so removed, not even working within the political interest and time. I don't agree. I think that is to do a big disservice.
And I have another example as well.
Big disservice.
And I'm speaking from experience.
Wait, you'll give us that example. Let's hear from Ed Gitonga, who is calling from Nyeri. Ed, good morning.
Morning to you. How you doing, guys?
Very well.
Mheshimiwa, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm doing good too. The last time we had a conversation with you was on Facebook. Anyway, guys, here's the thing. I don't think there is any need for adding women into the political positions. Case in point, even the current ones that are there, they are doing very minor effects, very minor change that we can really consider.
Pause a bit, take a deep breath, and then start that statement again, because you are sounding absolutely sexist. You are sounding.
Tread carefully.
Yes, start again, okay?
No, I'm not being sexist.
No, you're sounding sexist.
Okay, let me just say it as it is. Okay, let me say it as it is. Okay.
You say it.
Okay, let me rephrase it and say this. Okay.
Okay.
For example, as we say, people are at times their own enemies, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the sense, right now, if you come to the general public right now, Eric, and you ask them what's the purpose of women rep fit, for example, some do quote that it's PR. Others will quote that it was just put there so that women won't feel neglected, so to speak. And others, actually, they don't even know why it's there. I'll tell you why. Actually, some of them are women. I'll tell you why. Because, for example, let's say I'm from Tetu constituency. For last time that Priscilla Nyakobi was a women rep, right? I remember she was really actively involved in women groups, because I live in a place known as Karivumo. I know she knows the place very well. And, except groups, so to speak, okay? Except groups and, here and there empowerment. I can assure you of this. Women now, as we speak, maybe in the starting county, except maybe empowering of those groups, financial or so to speak, or maybe CBOs coming and empowering them, there's nothing really that you can say that is a huge impact as far as that seat is concerned. Actually, most people consider it, as I've said, a PR seat.
What do you think? Are you among those that consider it a PR?
And isn't empowering those groups impactful? Because you're saying aside from, I think that's a big contribution.
Okay, yes, it's a big contribution. Yes, I agree. Okay, here, personally, what I think there needs to be more input as far as, showing people the effects or the importance of the women's rep. Because if people can't understand why that seat is there, actually, most people, they will now be electing women's rep just based on, because
it's one of the 6.
Well, let's do it, yes.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you.
Think
I get your point, Ed.
Have a good one, guys.
You too, Ed. Ruben Kigame in Eldoret, good morning.
Morning, guys.
Hi, Ruben. How are you?
Pretty good. How is Mheshimiwa? How is Wakili?
We are well. Thank you very much.
Okay, just very quickly. City raised an issue, and I noticed that the tone sort of changed and everyone went a little moot. And that is, how ready are we for inclusion of persons living with disability? And I ask this at 2 levels. One, Mheshimiwa, you've been pushing very hard about women inclusion in IEBC and so on. For example, I know a gentleman that did apply for the process that is going on now that is visually challenged. With an MBA, he was not even shortlisted. You're very passionate about BBI. I would like to ask, are you guys ready for a president with disability? Maybe let me leave it at that for
Which
now.
guys?
Kenyans.
The BBI guy.
Oh, okay.
And maybe her commission by extension.
Okay. Thank you, Ruben. He has declared interest in vying for president.
Sure.
He is visually impaired.
Yeah, sure.
So he's raising a question out of complete, direct, lived experience and context.
No, there is a big problem, and I think that City raised it well around the persons with disability. The women have fought too hard for their battles for a long, long time. For the longest time, even the UN system did not admit that there was a problem between the rights of men and women. It wasn't until the 90s that the UN agreed to a convention on the rights of persons with the rights of to protect women against discrimination. We call it the CEDAW. And then the African Union with the Maputo Protocol. So women have traveled a journey that has led to what we now have in the Constitution of Kenya 2010. The PWDs are equally in the same problem of exclusion, maybe much more than the women. And it's a bit of a sad situation in our country here, and one that needs to be resolved very urgently. The Constitution of Kenya 2010 has rights, including Article 54, and has some positions reserved for persons with disability. One of the saddest moments for our own commission has been the realization of the loss of positions that are meant for persons with disability being occupied by persons who are not in that category, are able-bodied. It's been extremely sad. We know that tuko na tabia mbaya, but you would even, hata kama tuko na tabia mbaya, you would have hoped that that tabia mbaya also has some limits. I know, some shame. 17 counties have no person with disability, 0. 20 counties have only 1. The law is man and woman. And then only 10 counties are basically compliant. And in the National Assembly, there was this conversation was in BBI as well. And that's why in BBI you saw reserved 4 seats for persons with disability, 2 men and 2 women. But also more importantly, was a concept we wanted to follow of electoral colleges, that the persons with disability elect their own representatives. That even in the party system, because the PWDs will be in a party list, every party allows the PWDs of that party to then elect their own reps. It's been a sad thing. I mean, in the parliament that I served in, even those seats were not well distributed. I know we have a bad habit. In Kenya, we sometimes wonder, I don't know, ati ya women ni ya Wamasai, then another one, sijui ni ya Wakisi. I mean, you're like, my good Lord, why can't the PWDs give us their own rep? So Ruben is right in the sense that a lot of work still needs to be done. And the country is indeed true. It can prepare for a presidential candidate who is a person with disability. It's just that, like, women must now join parties or form parties and just prepare to sell your agenda to Kenyan people. On the IEBC, that's a missed opportunity. Yeah, we should have looked out for the person with disability. It's just that we were so worried about them not meeting the 2/3 gender rule. I think that our commission there, we should have, in the same advisory for the 2/3 gender rule, we should have included the issue of disability. And that's a challenge to the commission. I think we carry that message. As we prepare for 2022, it must be for women, person with disability, and the youth. Remember the youth that hawajapata hata ambassador kwa hii meza. So there's also another category that is up for misuse.
So long as these commissions, these bodies, these task forces have Kenyans with them, they will carry with them the biases that we have in our society. Because how on earth do you leave out the consideration for a person with disabilities? How? It means it doesn't feature. In fact, as far as you're concerned,
it's not top of mind.
When you're reminded, hey, okay.
By the way.
But it's not that bad for our commission. Our vice chair actually is a VI. Our vice chair is a person with disability and a visually impaired person, and has brought, and it's just been amazing. It's just like Ruben. It's just amazing to see the vision that they have. Actually, they have better vision than all of us who see. So it's taken time, but very soon.
When you live in a world that in which you've been discriminated against, you look at the world rather differently, because they know this issue of being considered a second or third class citizens. They live it. They understand it, because nobody is concerned about your intelligence, your abilities. You are damned just because of your disability. So you don't even move beyond your disability.
My sympathy also is with Mwaura, Senator Mwaura.
Yes.
Very, very sympathetic. It's just, parties are also what they
former
are.
Senator.
Yeah. We don't even know where he's former
is
senator.
He former senator?
Is
he current
know.
Senator?
Because, many crimes were committed by people who went to Huda. Why would it only be
You'll respond to Ed's issue, but let's first hear from John in Eldoret.
Why only the disability?
John, good morning.
Morning, habari zenyu?
Hatujambo kaka, na wewe je uko mzima?
Niko salama, nashukuru Mungu. Now, there's a very important thing Mheshimiwa has brought out. And this is the issue of the women that have already been elected. Are they different from the men that are elected? And I think that's one thing that people want to see. That we have elected you as a woman, a rep, we have elected you as a governor. What is the difference between you and a man? Are you just as corrupt as the next man? Are you just as thuggish as the next man? Because some of them, in the name of maybe trying to be like men, they're even more thuggish than the men. They are abusive, and people start wondering: is it really important, or why should we elect you if you are just behaving like the men?
But John, since this is an academic discussion, let me ask the question: are we then raising the bar for women? Are we judging women because they're women, or are we judging them by virtue of their position and their performance?
By virtue of their position and performance, not because they are women.
I don't think so.
Then we haven't solved the problem, because we are then holding women to a higher standard.
No.
We're not holding men to a performance standard.
Not necessarily.
We need to hold a performance standard for all candidates, irrespective of gender.
Yeah, but you see, if we are saying that we are changing, can we start feeling the change? Because that's the thing. If you're telling the society, look, we need to change, and the argument, and I completely support the arguments that, if you have women in leadership, then you're going to start seeing a difference in how you're governed. If you have women in leadership, you're going to start seeing a difference in the contributions that they make. Now, can we see those differences? Or are the women who are being elected to parliament going and then being muzzled or being swallowed up, and we don't actually, if people don't feel the difference, then you still go there back
and
there.
I just want to show, like this recent finance bill, the tax list. It took a lot of courage for my friend Gladys Wanga to push some of those things out of the tax list. The diapers, the milk, the bread. And that is a difference of a woman in leadership and a woman heading the committee that looks at the taxation list. Originally, I mean, I have had a discussion with her also on gas, for example. And it is just that she had so many items to save that she couldn't get onto the gas. But the men had finished. The tax list, as far as the men were concerned, was finished. The country must raise new money. There is a COVID pandemic. We were going to get bread taxed. So it took a lot of fight for a woman in leadership. At our parliament one time, it was the sanitary towels. Taxation was coming back to sanitary towels. It takes a lot of a fight for women to put unga, milk, and sanitary towels out of the tax list. So those changes are there. Maybe they are not documented enough, but they are indeed there. I know that was also the question of Ed earlier, even in Nyeri. If I go to Nyeri now, I still see the schools that I built. I still see the water dams that I did. I still see the women groups that we gave seed money to be able to do their chama. And if I came back, like one of my biggest pet subjects is a matching fund for women. That you put 100,000 here, we put 100,000 for you. It is government that would run out of money. It is not the women. So those changes are there. You just Ed and the person calling, you just need to look out. Utaziona. The changes are there. Even in your counties, you will see the projects that the women are trying to do. Even women like Alice Wahome, who is a constituency member of parliament. She has a Mwamkompia for primary schools. She's now finishing the last batch. And you know our primary schools ni zile za mkoloni. Hata tujajijengea zingine. Ni zile the early church ilitutengenezea. She's done an amazing job. With reviving education in her Kandara constituency. Women members of parliament and women leaders are trying to do their work. 3 more callers. Irongo in Kisii, good morning.
Good morning, Eric, and good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning.
Mheshimiwa, I have a little problem with the whole thing called the third gender role. In the 21st century, and especially in the year 2021, I think we should be talking about that rule in regard to public appointments and not on the basis of people who are going to be elected. Because we are being in class with these women. They are our sisters. They are our aunts and all this. They are as competitive as we are. I can hear how you are conversing issues. Wanjiro Kikonyo is somebody you cannot underrate. We have people going to school across the gender. In fact, I think it was wrong in the first place to have allowed this thing to come into the Constitution, because women can always go to the community and get elected. If they are not elected, let them try another day. Let us not talk about giving about, I don't know how many people. Yes.
Mwalimu.
Yes,
we
please.
live in a country where the issue of the girl child going to school has been a problem for the longest time. We live in a country where marrying children off to be people's wives is still a problem. We live in a country where it's only now we're beginning to wake up to the reality that women play not just a significant domestic role, but the same role that men can play in society and in developing the economy. Surely, are you saying that in a country such as this one here, a certain degree of affirmative action was not necessary to help women sort of like get to the levels that men had gotten to?
City, I don't agree with you on this. Because as far as I'm concerned, this has been like that, but in most parts of the country, the situation is not as dire as you are putting it. In fact, I would agree with you to the extent that we focus on appointments which will obviously capture people from areas probably where these things are still practiced. And where these things are practiced, where children are not in the second school, this is a question of law, it's a question of this crime. I don't understand why we should really have 47 women forcibly brought to Parliament.
But do you understand why we have 47 counties to start with? Because even the 47 counties were not there We brought them in the 2010 constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Why did we need the 47 counties? We could have continued being ruled by the national government.
We brought them so that we can have governance and services nearer to the people.
Yeah.
And then on another point is, do you not feel that the laws need the perspective of women, of people with disabilities, of youth? How will men continue to legislate? They will not be able to represent, and women are the majority of the population. Do you not feel they have an important role in designing legislation that speaks to the needs of this majority, of these, women as the primary caregiver, women as the one who supports, the household and the home? Do we not need that voice there?
We need it, and that's why I want them to be elected and not, for lack of a better word, and not imposed on people.
But that's why we have the 47.
And do you know
women are elected, one in every county, so
but
that
he's
we
saying
can have a
even
voice.
those 47 are forced.
Yeah, but
it's a seat that's created. It's a seat that's created forcibly, and you're told the only person that you can elect here is of the female gender.
But the reason for this,
counties, so that we can have a voice from all the 47 counties.
Yes, but the reason for this has been because elected women have been maybe less than 10%.
Yeah, for the longest.
So in Parliament, now maybe they're at around 15%, 17%.
With the women reps.
With the affirmative action. So without affirmative action, there'll be no women in elective politics.
Here's a question.
Allow me to ask you, Mheshimiwa.
Yes.
Why is it difficult for them to get elected? If you answer that one, I think we will be better.
Yes, that one I can answer. And a lot of it is cultural. A lot of it is culture. A lot of it is cultural based. And a lot of it also is that the society has not gotten used to electing women. If I vie now, the first question is whether I'm married or not. My husband doesn't have that question to answer. Once it is established whether I'm married, is this the first husband or the second? Am I on the 2 children or am I on 3 children? By the time I finish answering those questions, the election is over. Men don't have to answer those questions. And then there's politics of money and politics of resources. So there are so many challenges, and there's violence as well. I can also get beaten, I can get harassed, I could get violated within the campaign trail. There are so many problems that make me not compete on the same level with Eric Latif, for example, for an electoral seat.
That's one used to be, but I think...
No, it used to be, even now. Even now, I still have to show my husband. Even now. In fact, I'm just lucky I'm married in Nyeri.
Irongo.
Go and if you're married out of your county.
Irongo, you feel that and you started by saying, in the 21st century, the 21st year of the 21st century, things have changed dramatically in the country.
Sure.
And you don't feel that this is now a big issue as it used to be, let's say, 40 years ago.
Fashionable.
Okay. That may be subject to debate, but thank you very much for your call. Let's hear from John before we take this quick break. John in Thika, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Eric.
Good morning to you.
I just want to make just one small comment. Being a woman or a man, I think to me it's physical. The anatomy of a man, the human being. In this country, the problem that why we are talking about men not being good leaders is because we have been electing poor leaders, basically. So, to me, whether we are electing a man or a woman, the bottom line is what kind of leadership is she or he going to bring up, right? So we should not belabor so much whether the person who is being elected is a man or a woman. Is that person a leader to start with? Because, and I think as a country we need to start from the bottom here. We have talked of the girl child not going to school. We need to do a campaign where the girl child goes to school, competes with boys. If you go to any school these days, you'll find that where girls are competing favorably, you'll find position 1 almost to position 2, 3, 4 are girls. Whereas the boys are coming at the bottom there. So if we inculcate this from the word go from the young girls, time will come. Things will bring themselves up, and at the end of the day, you'll find that the girls will be leaders tomorrow because they have been molded to be leaders. So if we just look at the leader, we want a woman to be a leader. So we also need to ask ourselves a question. Is this woman a leader? Does she have the qualities that we need? Because people are asking, if you look at whatever has been asked in this show, is there a difference that of having a woman or a man, or are they behaving the same when they get to leadership positions? And it cuts across that we have a situation whereby we have leaders, either a woman or a man, but these leaders they do not have the qualities that we need as a country. So we need to interrogate our leaders, not from the gender perspective, but from the leadership
their
qualities.
own leadership qualities.
The leadership qualities, that is the bottom line.
And
you don't need a man.
What should we do with an unfair electoral process that pushes out or works against women candidates?
An electoral process, like maybe you can elaborate on that.
Our political
Where's
system.
the unfairness in our process?
Yes, because
the violence against women.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
I think the violence,
lack
not
of
against
financial
women.
support.
Is that the system or is that just the people?
It's the system.
Does the law say that there shall be no violence during campaigns?
There is a system that works against women. There is a law, yes, but in actual fact, there is a discrimination against women and people with disabilities and young people. Should we then not give them a leg up to enable them compete in that system?
Should we address
That's the
those?
essence of inclusion.
Let's take a break. We'll continue that conversation from that point. Thank you very much, John, for your contribution. It's 23 minutes to 10. We want to see how the roads are looking like, and then we continue the conversation. Yes, it's about gender. It's about leadership. It's about the quality of leader, but also it's about equal representation of members of our society in positions of leadership and in positions of government. Good morning.
Have you seen them? Am I lying?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone was asking me what channel is SpiceFM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
you.
you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
The weather with SpiceFM.
Okay, so it's warming up. Nairobi is now 16. It's going to rise to 24. Rain showers in Mombasa. Is it really raining in Mombasa? Or is it rain or is it showers in Mombasa? Well, it's a wet day in Mombasa, 29. Malindi is also wet at 29. Kakamega, sunny day at 28. Kisumu, sunny day at 30. Eldoret, sunny day at 23. Nakuru, sunny at 25. Nyeri, cloudy day at 21. In Kampala, Uganda, mostly sunny at 27. Dar es Salaam, cloudy day at 29. Lagos, Nigeria, sunny at 29. Cloudy in Kinshasa at 31. Sunny day at 2 degrees in South Africa. That sun should just take a break, go have some tea, and wrap itself up in a blanket. 2 degrees and it's sunny. Sunny day in Beijing at 27. Now that makes sense. Sunny day in Paris at 29, and it's hazy in London at 28. New York, clear days at 27. Nothing really to report about. There's nothing that we can say is causing this accident or, this traffic as we know it. Mombasa Road as we knew it will lose several lanes, in some cases reduced to 1 lane in favor of the private tollway expressway. That is an argument that's being fronted somewhere. I don't know how true that is because the expressway iko juu. Hii ingine ya wananchi wadogo wa kawaida mama mboga na mtu wa bodaboda na wakuuza matunda iko chini. Anyway, The roads are moving, apart from the usual places. Uhuru Highway is still busy, and Langata Road is still busy, and Jogoo Road coming towards Nyayo Stadium, City Stadium roundabout is also still busy. Landis Road busy, and Thika Road is busy at Pangani. For the rest, if there's anything you want us to talk about, please SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Let us know.
Spice and everything nice. All right.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
All right,
FM.
so it's 20 minutes to 10. Let's address two issues that are coming out of these calls. Number one, are we using a different kafiro for women versus men? And this is, are we placing them on a different scale in terms of when you are elected as a leader? Are people judging you differently? Are people expecting different from you? And number two is the issue of, is the system, to use Wanjiro's words, rigged against women participating in the electoral process? Starting with that, explain what you meant by it's a system that is not favorable to women.
It's rigged against women, to put it in very simple terms, because of the financial investment required, because of the nature of the political parties we have. Yes, we have a law, but we have our political parties are still really very personality centered and based, so they're not democratic institutions. So elections are supposed to be a democratic process, and they assume that the institutions that support it are equally democratized. So in the transition period, when we move from kind of centralized personality oriented systems to the ideal, we need to give support to those that are not able to compete in this uneven playing ground, and that is women, that is youth, that is persons with disability. So I support
Mwalimu City is raising his hand. He wants to ask Mwalimu the question.
Where on this planet are political parties democratic institutions?
Well, they are more democratic than what we have. In Kenya, political
How
parties
so?
fold up and open themselves up based on the forthcoming elections. You need basic stability in an election. Look at,
So how
for
is that?
instance,
How
let me
is
give
that?
you one example.
How is
One
that
example.
unfavoring a woman and not the man?
I've been asked a very basic question so that I can be a bit... one example of more democratic decision-making, let's look at South Africa, where you have a party that can censure the president, that can have an unpopular candidate actually ascend to the seat, because if you read the politics around Ramaphosa, it is not that he was able to muscle his way. It's a democratic process within the party. In Kenya, that would never happen. If you're not in favor with the leadership, you're not going anywhere. In fact, you'll be removed. We were just talking about unfortunate MP Isaac Mwaura, who spoke out of turn and met, So the subjective enforcement of rules due to political parties, lacking the democratic structures that they need. So let's not pretend that our electoral process is serving us. We must recognize that there's a lot of work to be done. There's work ongoing, but it is still very much steeped in the kind of old type of governance that we are trying to unseat. So
I understand what you've said, but you have avoided the question I asked completely.
Which is what?
I asked you, where on this planet do you have a political systems, political parties that are democratic? Where? They don't exist.
This is true, because for a long, long time, even in law, political parties were clubs. They were private members' clubs.
They still are.
No, we have long come from that discussion. Because what happened is, yes, we constitutionalized ours. We constitutionalized our political parties for a long, long time. In fact, Professor Jackson Ojuang Oboma was the lecturer for those things and taught everybody that a political party is a club where you must live by the club rules. But then now, the political parties are the vehicles through which people come to leadership and through which people come to governance. So in Kenya in 2010, we abandoned that theory of political parties being clubs, and we made our political parties constitutional, and we have articles like 91 detailing how a political party should behave. Of course, the law and the theory are now still not together. But one of the biggest efforts we need is the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties. The Office of the Registrar of Political Parties must make our parties constitutional, legal vehicles, and we also need parties that last longer. These parties that are abracadabra, leo iko kesho haiko, are also not helping our political culture. That kudos to ODM, because it's the only party that has now survived quite a number of cycles.
DP is still there.
No, DP, has been swallowed, then unswallowed together with PNU, So one of the challenges we still have with our political culture, and part of the reason why this political culture is not changing and is not benefiting the special interest groups, is because of that. So we now need political parties that survive. The CCM in Tanzania, the ANC in South Africa. We are a big embarrassment here in Africa, we as Kenyans. If we look at NPP and NDC in Ghana, we must now start to have parties that are beyond the electoral cycle.
I think
and that are now, in line with the new thinking of the Constitution, are following the constitutional principles and also following the legal principles. Because we have a whole act on political parties.
Those who join those vehicles as members and say, for example, I'm a member of Jubilee, those are the ones that have responsibility. And if you look, a majority of the people who come out to proclaim and that they support this particular vehicle are women.
Yes, but then they support it not from them being candidates and not from them getting
from them
the space
saying that they are the voter. They are
get.
basically the voter, and they're the ones who are going out in the grassroots.
No, there is a bit of work to be done on political parties. Even this succession, part of the difficulties we're having with this succession, and even with behavior in governance, is that our political parties don't work. In the ANC, if you disrespect women, and we as a party want women to be respected, we can go and punish you at the party level. We are not there. We are not there with our political parties. And that's a whole lot of work that needs to be done. And like I was just telling you about the price, for example, of vying in some of these political parties. A gubernatorial candidate can be as high as 500,000. So nomination. And that is not good for young people, not good for persons with disability, not good for women. What Ruben was asking earlier about a presidential candidate, I think presidential candidates pay 1 million. So you see, if you don't have 1 million shillings, you're not going to be a presidential candidate of a political party. There's a work there that needs to be done. And the work is not by creating new political parties. I personally don't support the thinking that women should go and form their own party. No. These parties that are existing are the ones that should be 2/3 compliant and should be legally sound with the inclusion of women and young people.
Are you saying that because we've constitutionalized our political parties, that the club culture is then eradicated?
We have even tried to give them taxpayers' money, just to try and eradicate the club culture. It is true, it is not eradicated yet. It is working. In some parties, if you were to rate parties in Kenya, the party that is moving closer to the kind of party that we want to see is actually the ODM. So all of the other parties must then go in that line. We can't have parties that are clubs. And we can also have parties owned by party leaders. There's a big weakness around that in our political system. Actually, part of the reason why this inclusion is not working is the problems in political parties.
Even in the so-called developed nations, which have, should we say, mature democracies, those parties have owners. It's not as though there's some huge democratic institution or anybody who's a member has a say. There are people who have more say.
But the law has balanced. The law has balanced the role of the owner vis-a-vis the role of other people. Like in the Democratic Party, for example, now, where we have Kamala Harris as the running mate to Joe Biden. It is a party decision. So it is true the party has its owners. It is true the party owners will choose the presidential candidate. But it is also true that those parties are guided by rules.
But also even those owners rise to that position. So it's not somebody who basically just forms a party and becomes the owner and goes and dies with it. But the owners, the current owners of like those political parties have risen to that position.
Yeah.
Those who are now senior in those parties have gone up the ranks of that party, which is a good thing. So it's still, yes, the people who sit at the table and make decisions are the ones who influence a lot of what's happening. Sure. But then they also are beholden to those below them.
Plus their rules. Their rules that are enforced, that are upheld. And it might not be ideal, but...
there are always rules.
No, but it
but
is
one of the other things we actually need for this discussion is actually we must go into parties. Another big, that we were talking about with one other big missing link is that we are not in parties. And if you're not in a political party, the club culture, when the political party is making a decision, then you don't matter. But if you are in the party and the party is making, like the way we're talking about persons with disability,
Yep.
they must go to their political parties and they must ask their political parties to hold an electoral college
Caucus
for them.
there.
Yeah, they must caucus there. Women as well. So if you don't take up that space, then eventually when other things are falling apart, you can't blame us, and you can't quite speak about UDA if you're not an UDA member. You can't speak about Jubilee if you're not a Jubilee member. So the special interest people must join parties.
Did you see from the register of political parties, which party do you belong to?
Who, me?
Did you check?
Political party do I belong to?
Yes.
Why aren't you asking about my church membership?
No, because this one is registered. A former colleague of yours in the previous parliament, Honorable Shakil Shabir, is on the line. He wants to contribute. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
I've been listening to my dear friend Priscilla, Mheshimiwa Priscilla.
Yes,
I want
hi.
to ask a question. Hello, how are you?
Very well.
I want to ask a question. I was there in the 10th Parliament. I was there in the 11th Parliament, and with the grace of God, I'm there in the 12th Parliament. We were the most disappointed in the 11th Parliament by the contribution of women. We had 47 women plus, nearly 60, and every gender item that was coming up, the women were missing. Even when you were looking. We were looking for gender equality. You even called a meeting at Norfolk Hotel. Out of your 80 women or 70 women, 12 turned up. Now you see the problem that we face is not the equality of it's the quality of the participants in Parliament, the women participants. And I think, or the quality of their contribution, rather, not their quality. The quality of their contribution. And if you look at the handset, in the 10th Parliament, there were less than 8 women or 9 women in Parliament. Jimmy Ngweni and myself were members of KEWEPA, honorary members of the Kenya Women Parliamentarians. With Martha Karua and others, we passed more gender bills in the 10th Parliament than we did in the whole of the 11th Parliament. Even in the 12th Parliament, and I challenged Priscilla, Mheshimiwa Priscilla, I challenged her, and she was very active in the 11th Parliament. I challenged her to tell us how women are, where are the women? Because you see, even the Speaker spoke the other day in Parliament. When something comes up on budget, all the lady MPs leave, or most of them. You see, when you're sitting in Parliament, and I'd like you to see, other than Millie Odhiambo, Mheshimiwa Millie Odhiambo, and one or two others, nobody else is there. So we are asking, as much as you are requesting and requiring women participation, it has to be quality women participation at a level so that we can make an impact. And I support women empowerment, but you can only empower those who wish to be empowered.
Good point. Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa.
That's my point. Thank you.
Asante sana.
Wow, that's damning.
It is true.
So women are getting into Parliament on the gender ticket, get there, and then betray the cause.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad because what happens is, and I like what he said earlier about society. Women and men are part of this society. So even the women who come to Parliament are part of this society. So socialized in certain ways. And that shows when you come onto the floor of Parliament. But then what happened with that Parliament 11th, the one that I served in, we had family laws that were pending since 1968. It is actually that Parliament that passed them. The Family, the Marriage Act, the Matrimonial Property Act, and the Protection Against Domestic Violence. In fact, it was so embarrassing for us because we were using the Married Women's Property Act of 1882 of England here in Kenya. So it was only the Parliament with women reps that actually passed those laws. The women reps didn't have a kitty. So again, they passed the fund that allowed them to have a kitty. But a lot more can be done. And you are right, on the scales are not the same. 47 women reps came. The House has 349 members. Nobody complains about the performance of men, who are in hundreds. The men are 271. Women are 47. Everybody complains about the 47 women. And it takes time to get the space courage and the floor courage that Jim Orengo, for example, commands when he speaks. That is not a 5-year term. So women come into the House for 5 years. It is not enough time for you to be Jakoyo Midiwo, who was a maverick with the floor, or Aden Duale, who's a majority leader. Again, the House leadership positions, many of them didn't go to women. Like this particular House, it is true women have underperformed. Our parliament was even better. This 12th parliament is even worse. But then look at the House leadership. There isn't a single woman. Even the seat we had with Joyce Laboso of the deputy speaker now went to Cheboy. And then from the majority leader to the deputy majority leader to majority whip to deputy majority whip in both sides of a coalition. By the way, the first woman who had a seat was Cecily at deputy majority whip. You know, like a deputy of a deputy of a deputy, you know. You cannot even get any space. So it has to be
let's
that this leadership is real and the political parties are giving women real time. But we are alive to the quality challenge. But also let us be alive. Like Shakir Shabir, who's a very, very good member of parliament. I mean, I'm hoping he will be in the 13th parliament as well. He is a real good member of parliament. But look at how long he has had to serve. He came from being a mayor of Kisumu city. The women reps that he's saying have not qualified. Well, wamekuja tu juzi.
You see, now the challenge, Mheshimiwa, is
I'm not
with
sure
the public.
for an excuse.
With the public.
No, it is real.
You
don't also get prime time when you're not a ranking member.
That's true.
There are also rules of parliament. You don't get
there's-
time until you're a ranking member.
There's now the expectation of the public. Now, because we have mainstreamed the gender conversation, so we are now we are basically shining the light and the spotlight on what's happening. So we have now 47, there are more, all right? So are we hearing a louder voice coming from parliament? Are we hearing a louder voice that is advancing this agenda? And if it does not happen, then the question, that's why the public would be like...
No, there are gaps. We are happy with, if you look at what Ngilu is doing as a governor, for example, with Kikotech, and now she just opened a second industry for mangoes and fruit pulping and tomato pulping. If you have many of those examples going on in the society, then people can start to see why it is important to bring up women in leadership. So we have a challenge around communicating what the women are doing, but more importantly, showing that indeed women leadership creates a difference. There we admit we have a challenge. But it does not detract from the principle that the 2/3 gender rule, even if the women come and are not performing as much, it does not excuse us from implementing the 2/3. In fact, were they in numbers, they would perform better. Maybe the reason they're not performing is because the number is also too low.
Honorable member, take 45 seconds now as we conclude.
Sure.
Speak to the people who are listening. All right, let's talk about next year's election. The women who shall come, either seeking nomination in political parties, seeking election at the ballot. Speak to the people.
I think that I would ask our people to give both men and women a good chance to be heard as candidates and to allow the women to sell themselves as good candidates, as good leaders, as change makers of our country. Don't dismiss any woman just because she's a woman. If you see a woman who's vying for MCA, for Member of Parliament, for Senatorial, for Gubernatorial, and even for Presidential, allow that woman to express herself, to share her vision. And if you buy in that vision, don't look at anything else. That is your candidate. Thank you.
Nice one.
Very well said. You like adding? Not to add?
No. I was like, nice one. Well said.
She has added no.
No.
Well said.
Well said.
In the same
All right.
sentence.
Today's Proverb City.
It is not the cook's fault when cassava turns to be hard and tasteless.
Put that a bit in that context. It's not the fault of the 47
Put
women.
in the context of the vegetable?
It doesn't quite apply. Huh? Yeah, maybe it's been too long in the store.
Let me put it simply.
The salt was
Understand something for what it actually is and speak the truth to a situation. Not as you'd like it, but as it is.
That's a very good interpretation.
Very well said. Thank you for tuning into the Situation Room.
Putting words in my mouth.
Join us again tomorrow. Happy Friday tomorrow. Yes, we'll have more conversations here in the Situation Room. We'll be discussing issues, salaries. You guys are not getting any more pay. Rise for the next 2 years.
Done.
And all public servants. So SRC will be here.
I support.
You support that? Huh?
It's COVID time.
Good.
We should buy vaccines.
Now until 11 o'clock is music, and then after that, Sugar and Spice coming in until 3. Good morning. It's now 10 a.m.